Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobooks. One Piece, start as a mythical beast, practice to become stronger. Chapter 81, Sea Mission. The sky was slightly bright in the early morning, and beams of soft orange sunlight shone through the gaps in the mist and fell on the corners of the naval training base. The silent atmosphere was broken by the sound of orderly footsteps, and a group of recruits marched towards the training ground in neat steps. Zifa stood at the front of the team, his eyes scanning the faces in each row, making sure that everyone was enrolled and ready to take on today's mission. Every time his eyes swept across an area, the sailors' backs involuntarily straightened more, their hands clasped behind their backs, and their faces became more serious. But there were still a very small number of people standing loosely in the crowd, and he looked at those people carefully. "I won't force you to participate if you don't want to. You can withdraw on your own accord. I won't stop you." His voice was not very loud, but it was clearly heard by everyone. Those who were already a little sloppy suddenly raised their eyes and stood on tiptoe instinctively, but then they seemed to have remembered something and hurriedly adjusted their attitude. Zifa understood that these people did not come here voluntarily, and it was most likely due to family reasons that caused them to come to this training camp. But these are not his responsibility. Since no one has left, then just follow the orders and complete the task conscientiously. Although Zephyr is known as the general who doesn't kill, he is also well known among the Navy's high-ranking officials for his strict discipline of the army. He cannot tolerate even a grain of sand in his eyes and will never allow a bad apple to affect the lives and safety of a group of people. If those people who have the idea of quitting continue to behave like they do today, he will definitely not show mercy to them. Zifa looked at the Navy in front of him and said loudly, "My name is Zifa. I believe most of you know my name, so I won't introduce it in detail. I am your chief instructor. From now on, your previous positions, resumes, and achievements will be ignored. Here you only have one identity, that is, a student. Here, the only thing you need to do is obey. Even if I tell you to eat shit, you have to do it. Do you hear me?" "Heard it." All the Navy answered loudly, fearing that Zifa would be dissatisfied. The three people from Jinan also worked hard to cooperate with Zifa, and their voices were even the loudest. If they are going to do something, they will do it the best. They want to be the most handsome guys in the training camp. This is my second training camp, and it will last for 3 years. Of course, if you want to graduate early, that's fine too. As long as you get the unanimous consent of the Navy's top brass, you can graduate as early as you want. Zifa proposed a method to graduate early, but it is estimated that not many people can do it. You are all already elites. Zifa looked around at the slightly moved expressions of the people around him, and continued, "The first lesson I teach you is, to actually go to the battlefield." Some of the Navy officers looked at each other in bewilderment. These people all had experience fighting against pirates, and the first lesson that Zephyr taught them seemed a bit of a joke. But some people looked hesitant. They had never actually been on the battlefield and were somewhat resistant to this thing. The purpose of their coming to the naval training camp was just to expand their interpersonal relationships, and they never thought that they would face the difficult problem of going to the battlefield on the first day of joining. Seeing the various expressions of the sailors, Zifa was not surprised, as he had seen such scenes many times. But the Navy will face this problem. Unless they transfer to civilian positions, this will happen sooner or later. Zifa said calmly, "I have seen at least 1,000 if not 800 students of your quality. You better pay attention to your own safety. Don't die on the battlefield accidentally and let an old man like me collect your bodies." As soon as the words fell, all the Navy officers, including Jinan and his men, were suddenly confused, with several black lines appearing on their foreheads. As expected of a teacher, he is so good at telling lies. I guess I have said this to many people. Jinan has been hearing this since he was a child and has basically become immune to this kind of meaningless talk. Without further ado, let me arrange your tasks in detail. Before the Navy could react, Zephyr got straight to the point. This sea mission is a team mission. You can form a team of 3 to 5 people. The headquarters will send warships to escort you to the vicinity of the mission location. Your mission is to use your own abilities and those of your partners to find the target of your subjugation. We will not give you any help for your mission. You can only rely on yourself and your companions, so please carefully choose the partner that suits you. Zifa's eyes imprinted everyone's faces in his mind. Although he spoke sternly, he valued these young people in front of him more than anyone else. They are the future of the Navy. But he also understood that without going through hardships, he would not be able to become a pillar of society. Zifa continued, you must pay attention to safety. Don't let your guard down when you are outside. Don't trust anyone except your companions. After you complete your mission, return to the naval base closest to you and contact us there. We will arrange for someone to pick you up. As soon as he finished speaking, the sailors started talking, no longer caring that the instructor was still beside them. They had encountered team missions before. But asking them to find suitable teammates among the people they just met is a bit too difficult for them. This is a mission that concerns their lives and cannot be decided hastily. Moreover, they don't even know who the target of the mission is, which makes the difficulty of the mission increase to a higher level. The sailors were as anxious as ants on a hot pan and had no idea what was going on. Teacher Zifa, will there be any punishment if the mission fails? We don't know the specific situation of the people around us yet. It is a bit too difficult for us to find teammates under such conditions. If we are in danger, can we ask for your help? Zifa did not answer the Navy's questions. The answers to these questions were already known when they joined the Navy. He glanced coldly at the Navy who asked questions and said in a cold tone, you must be clear about your identity. You are the Navy. When you become a Navy soldier, you should be mentally prepared. Even I could die on the battlefield at any time. If you are not mentally prepared, you should quit as soon as possible. After hearing what Zifa said, the Navy suddenly became quiet. Perhaps they have been living in comfort for too long and have long lost the courage to move forward. But they will not forget your purpose in joining the Navy. Chapter 82 Mission Object. Those who are here are the backbone of the future Navy. It is impossible for them not to understand Zifa's profound meaning. What's more, the Navy headquarters would not let them die in vain. The selected mission targets must be strictly screened to retain the opponents that best suit their strength. In this case, they may not be without the ability to fight. Some sailors were daydreaming and even imagined the glorious scene when their team was the first to complete the mission. Zifa doesn't want the future of the Navy to be just muscular men using brute force. There are countless extremely vicious people in this sea. People who don't use their brains cannot survive in this sea. And they represent not only themselves, they represent the interests of the Navy. Training a group of well-qualified naval personnel would require a huge amount of manpower and material resources. The Navy is not rich enough to let these people die in vain. There are no fools among those who can come to our headquarters to study, but due to their age, many of them have little experience and have no idea how dangerous this ocean is. He thought that he could bring peace and stability to the people in the area under his jurisdiction with his passion. The next task will completely shatter these people's naive ideas and make them truly down to earth. Although they may encounter danger, it is not a reason for them to retreat. They are the Navy. While they have rights and status beyond those of ordinary people, they also have to pay things of corresponding value. Although Zifa loves every one of his students, he doesn't want to see them die before him. If he wants these students to grow up smoothly, he can only let go at the right time. Some birds build their nests on steep cliffs and force their young to fly off the cliff once they have grown fledge. Without tempering, you will never be successful. The sailors stood quietly in the venue, but their eyes searched every new face, trying to find potential partners in the crowd. They all know that choosing teammates is a science. It not only affects the efficiency of completing tasks, but also whether you can trust the people around you in critical moments. Their hearts were in turmoil, and this anxiety was inadvertently revealed in their tense shoulders and clenched hands. Zifa's words asking them to withdraw were still ringing in their ears. But how could someone who could stand in this place choose to run away with his tail between his legs? If I return to the place where I studied and lived before, I don't know what kind of ridicule I will encounter. There is no way they will give up. Looking at the crowd that had quieted down again, Zifa understood their choice. Approval appeared in his eyes, and a rare smile appeared on his serious face. Very good. From now on you can move freely and find your companions. Gather at the port in half an hour and receive the specific mission content there. I hope you can all find teammates that suit you. Zifa said in a deep voice, disband now. 10 minutes later. Jinan and his two companions arrived at the port. Walked into the hut where tasks were issued. Once you make a decision, it cannot be changed. The three of you, as a team, must hunt down this pirate within a limited time. The voice of the instructor in charge of distributing tasks echoed in their ears, I can only provide simple hints here. In the silent air, he handed over a yellowed piece of paper with a picture of a pirate with a full beard and fierce eyes. He was arrogant and seemed to laugh at all laws and order, not taking anything seriously. Jinan and the others looked at each other, their eyes filled with an indescribable excitement and anticipation. For them, it is enough to know some simple information. The warship will send them to the island where that person lives. Once their observation haki is activated, everything on the island will be under their control. Moreover, dangers and opportunities coexist. The stronger the enemy, the more they will gain. Jinan clenched his fists and began to think of various capture strategies in his mind. Tian Yueshi pursed his dry lips and said softly, "Isn't this mission too easy?" The instructor smiled slightly, catching Tian Yueshi's nonchalance towards the mission. This kind of mission was indeed not challenging for the three people in front of him, but unfortunately this was already the most difficult of all the missions. Pirates won't hide in one place for too long. You have to analyze the situation there by yourselves. With your ability to investigate and analyze, it won't be difficult to find the target of the mission. At this moment, Kuzan's thoughts have flown above the vast ocean, as if every wave may hide clues, and every sea area and every rumor may be the way to becoming a pirate. The arrival of the mission means the hunting horn has been sounded. Jinan put away the paper, took a deep breath, nodded, and said firmly and seriously, "Yes, instructor, we will live up to our mission." In an instant, Jinan's heart was filled with fighting spirit, and he and his companions were about to embark on an unknown journey. Night falls. The warship sailed on the boundless sea. It should have been rest time, but the cabin was still brightly lit. There are about 5 to 6 teams on a warship. Although their destinations are different, they are still on the same ship. Under the light, various nautical charts and materials were scattered on the rough wooden table, and seriousness and concentration were written on every face. There was an unspeakable silence in the air. The only sound that could be heard was the occasional sound of pages turning, or someone clicking their tongue from time to time, as if silently reciting some strategy in their heart. "I knew that old man Zifa wouldn't let us have it easy," Jinan complained as he looked at the task in his hand that had been swapped. "There's nothing we can do about it. Your strength is no secret to Mr. Zifa. It's normal to change the mission," Kuzan said with a smile. "This person doesn't seem easy to deal with." Tian Yueshi stood behind Jinan, looking at the paper in his hand, her brows slightly frowned. What Jinan was holding in his hand was a bounty warrant. Orambas. The bounty is 7,800 million baileys. The admiral of the Yodomaria Grand Fleet, known as the Kill Ruler and the Cunning Adventurous Killer. He has more than 2,000 men and more than 20 pirate ships. Although he is not very old, he has already made a great name for himself in the Grand Line. Although his strength cannot be said to be that strong, this person has killed people like crazy. The bounty on his head clearly shows how his actions have incurred the wrath of heaven and man. If your opponent is a guy like this, you don't have to hold back at all. Kuzan had naturally heard of this man's bad reputation. There is no need to be merciful to such a person. It is better to send him to reincarnation as soon as possible. The problem is that this guy is hard to find. The transmission of information on the sea is slow, and they probably won't meet these people if they go to the place where this guy stayed before. This is the test that Zifa and the others are giving us. Chapter 83 7 Water Capital. On the rough sea, a warship is like a lonely beast, traveling through the vast ocean. Jinan and Tianyu stood quietly on the deck, gazing at the sea and sky, facing the unknown fate ahead of them. The wind blew gently, lifting the tips of their hair. Jinan looked at the island that had gone far away, knowing in his heart that each team had a different mission, and theirs was destined to be a lonely journey. Everything around them reminded them that their mission was more unpredictable and isolated than that of the other teams that had already landed. They have all arrived at their destination. Tian Yueshi sighed, his voice filled with an imperceptible loneliness. Jinan turned his head and stared at Tian Yu, with various thoughts intertwined in his eyes. "We always have to walk our own path." Kuzan stood by the side, leaning on the railing. "The warship will take us to the Seven Waters City, where the best shipbuilding craftsmen in the world gather. It is also the favorite place for pirates. But as far as I know, our target has never been there. The Seven Water City has experienced shipbuilding craftsmen, which is enough to attract pirates to flock there. When drifting on the sea, everyone wants to make their boat stronger, as this also means they are responsible for their lives. People from all over the world gather there, making it much easier to get news." Jinan patted his shoulder gently. They both knew the uncertainty of this mission. Every decision and every action may determine the success of the mission and whether they can return safely. Because we don't have accurate information, we need to go there. The decision of the headquarters will not be wrong. Jinan's gaze finally fell on the winding and uncertain route. Even if the future is full of uncertainties, they will stick to it. Time passed bit by bit, and after sailing on the sea for a while, Jinan and his companions finally saw the outline of the seven-water city. In the deep blue sea, a colorful island gradually appeared in sight. The warship was sailing slowly, and the sailors stood on the deck, their eyes revealing joy at the upcoming landing. The Seven Waters city stood there, like a strange island that only existed in ancient nautical maps, looking extremely spectacular. The high column of water in the center of the island supports a cloud of mist, which looks like a bridge between the sky and the earth from a distance. There are also many ports near the entrance, which are now full of ships in need of supplies. This is the Seven Water City. Jinan sighed softly, the outline of the island reflected in his eyes. Tian Yueshi and the others beside him also leaned forward involuntarily. Their eyes could hardly conceal their inner shock. 7 huge waterways extended from the interior of the island, like 7 giant dragons, quietly guarding the peace and tranquility of this water city. On the waterways, ships shuttle back and forth, as light and lively as wings woven into the sea. What a magical way to travel! Jinan and his teammates smiled at each other, realizing how different this moment was from the warships they usually sailed on in the waves. The ships here are leisurely and traveling is no longer a pursuit but an enjoyment. They couldn't help but imagine themselves traveling through the waterways, feeling the comfort and unique charm brought by the water city. Our mission is about to begin. I hope we can be as capable as these ships. Kuzan was silent for a long time before he spoke, with an imperceptible expectation in his voice. Okay, let's get off the boat. Jinan jumped and landed lightly on the port. Because the Seven Water City is famous throughout the entire ocean, there are many ships passing through here, and occasionally you can see pirate ships leaving the port. It can be said that this place is a mixed crowd, and it is the best choice for them to disembark here. It's a pity that the sea train has not yet been built, and he really wants to try it. Jinan did not choose to enter the island through the huge waterways in front of him, but instead flew in another direction with the two of them. On the wrecked ship island, 3 shadows were moving forward in an interlaced manner. Jinan and Tianyu's footsteps sounded particularly loud in the sandy and gravelly shipyard. If you only look at the appearance of this place, it seems to be a place where abandoned ships are placed, but the further you go inside, you will find that there is a different world inside. And this place is different from what Jinan imagined. The shipwreck island is also unusually lively during this period of time, with a constant flow of people coming and going. However, most people left the inconspicuous building with lost expressions. This is Tom's studio, the largest shipyard in the Seven Waters. Tom was banished to this garbage dump by the authorities of Water City 7 because he built the Oro Jackson for Roger, but even so, there was an endless stream of people coming to see Tom. This is also the main investigation location of Jinan. This place is unexpectedly nice. Jinan exclaimed as he walked. The idle chatter of the old boatman in the corner, the sound of planing wood cutting through the air, and the rhythm of hammers hitting the ground not far away make this place full of the flavor of life. When Jinan and his companions approached the shipyard, a yellow-haired woman came towards them and looked at them warily. Who are you? If you want to build a boat, please make an appointment in advance. Kokoro has come into contact with all kinds of people. Although the 3 people in front of him were wearing ordinary clothes, their temperament was different from that of ordinary people. We are not here to commission shipbuilding. We are here just to see Mr. Tom. Jinan said to the woman in front of him. He's not here. Kokoro refused when he heard that these people were looking for Tom. She is Tom's assistant, and it is her job to stop people of unknown origin for Tom. Jinan knew the other party's concerns and said with a smile, We are not here to cause trouble, but we have something we would like to ask Mr. Tom for help. Bad guys won't say directly that they're going to do bad things, so Kokoro still looked wary of Jinan and the other 2. Just when Jinan wanted to continue explaining, a tall figure appeared behind Kokoro. What brings you 3 here? Jinan's eyes lit up when he saw the man who suddenly appeared. The man was fat, wearing a dark blue coat, and always had a smile on his face, giving people the feeling that he was easy to get along with. Tom, why did you come out? Kokoro was a little anxious. She didn't expect Tom to appear here. I am Tom, you can speak directly if you have anything to say. But I still have things to finish. Please keep it short if you can. Tom wiped his dusty hands on his clothes and extended his hand to shake hands with Jinan politely. Chapter 84 The Gods of Water. You are from the Navy headquarters. Tom sighed. He had a good impression of the Navy, but his current identity was somewhat sensitive. After building a ship for Roger, he has been disliked by the Navy and the people of the Seven Water City. But he was just an ordinary man who knew how to build ships. He didn't have any ideals or ambitions. He just wanted the ships he built to make the passengers feel safe. We keep customer information strictly confidential. You may be disappointed if you come to me. Tom told the truth. But they are pirates who do all kinds of evil. Tianyu Toki said sincerely. Needless to say, we shipbuilders also have to abide by the rules of this industry, but I can tell you that the person you are looking for did commission me to build a ship. Tom thought about it and gave some hints. Jin An's eyes flickered. It was a good thing to have a clue. Thank you for telling us the news. Tom shook his head and refused to accept Jin An's thanks. He told the truth, that pirate group has come to Water 7 many times. Anyone you ask can give you the answer. If there is nothing urgent, you'd better leave this island as soon as possible. Tom saw that the three people opposite seemed to be visiting the Seven Water City for the first time, so he kindly reminded them. We want to continue looking for clues about that person on the island. Tian Yueshi was a little confused. They had just arrived at the island today, and it would be unrealistic to leave so soon. Kuzan was also a little surprised and asked, do you have any other concerns? Instead of answering directly, Tom asked an unexpected question, did you see many ships leaving when you came? Jinan recalled the scene when he came here and nodded, yes, there were many ships leaving from here when we came here. Is there some disturbance on the island? Tian Yueshi's eyes became dangerous. If that was the case, they would not be able to leave. At least they had to quell the chaos on the island before leaving. Tom saw that the three people in front of him had the wrong idea, so he smiled and shook his head and said, have you heard of the water gods of the Seven Water Cities? Water gods? Jinan seemed to have grasped something, but he couldn't remember it for a moment. It looks like you guys have never heard of it. Tom suddenly realized, the water gods are a tsunami that occurs once a year. During this period of time, outsiders will choose to leave the Seven Water City, and local residents will run to higher ground to avoid tsunamis. You came at the same time as the gods of water. Tom patiently explained the science to the three people. He didn't want these people to be foolishly swept into the sea by the tsunami. Tom led the three of them outside the room. Tom stood in front of Jinan and the other two, his toes unconsciously digging into the fine sand. The sea breeze blew his hair, his brows were slightly wrinkled, and his eyes were filled with an inexplicable heaviness. He turned and ran his finger along the subtle changes in the distant sea horizon, where the ripples seemed to reveal the impending wrath of nature. Look at the wave. Tom spoke slowly and clearly, it's not an ordinary wave, it's the prelude to a tsunami. The three people in Jinan fell silent, and the air seemed to freeze. Their expressions changed slightly when they heard the word tsunami. But no one spoke. Their heartbeats seemed to become more tense in the face of the impending disaster. Their eyes were drawn to his gesture and they looked towards the coast, where the water level seemed to have dropped a little, revealing the traces of the cliffs being soaked in sea water all year round. When you see the water recede so quickly, it's like the ocean is taking a deep breath, and then the next second, it's coming back with incredible force and speed. Tom's words were accompanied by his gestures, and the trembling of his hands was not because of fear, but because of the urgency that needed to be conveyed. Tian Yueshi's throat slid open and he swallowed his nervous saliva. Does this kind of natural disaster really exist in this world? But why do people here seem to have adapted to this situation? They exchanged a silent look and knew that everything Tom said was true. Tom continued to explain, every detail like drawing a map for them to escape. He wanted the three of them to realize that every second of hesitation meant a smaller chance of leaving here, and the impact of the tsunami would not be resolved in a short time. The raging sea can destroy everything, but won't the Seven Water Cities always stand here? Jin An's voice was flat. He really wanted to see this huge tsunami with his own eyes. Tom's nervousness was not transmitted to them. On the contrary, the blood in their hearts seemed to boil even more after hearing this. They looked up at the surging horizon in the distance, where the waves were still lapping against the shore calmly, as if the world had stopped at this moment. Ha ha ha, I'm also very interested in this water gods. Kuzan took a step forward lightly, his words filled with excitement. He clenched his fists, and one day he would make sure that the sea would not be able to stop him, and even the huge waves could be easily frozen. The three may have different ideas in their minds, but they reached a tacit consensus on the decision not to leave the Seven Water City. In a day or two, the water gods will surge in from afar. Tom's steady voice spread slowly in the silent air. He has become accustomed to tsunamis. It happens once a year and he has long been able to take it lightly. However, he was very interested in these 3 sailors who came from the Navy headquarters. He hadn't seen such a spirited Navy for a long time. The tsunami is coming, and I see you have no plans to leave. Jinan looked at the shipyard that was still busy. People were still focused on their work and were not at all panicked by the coming tsunami. These ordinary people are not afraid, so naturally there is nothing to be afraid of. Uncle Tom, we're going to follow you from now on. Tom looked at them, first in confusion, then in admiration. I am a person excluded by the 7 Water City. It will take some time for the tsunami to arrive. We will go up last. Tom looked at the main urban area in the distance and sighed. On the rocks by the sea, the 3 stood side by side, facing the raging sea. They all believed that even the most violent waves would eventually calm down. The sea breeze at this dusk seemed faster than usual, with urgency and moisture, as if the ocean's own breathing had become heavy. The clouds on the horizon gathered together, turning a deep grey and gradually merging with the horizon, making it difficult to tell where the sky was and where the sea was. Jinan gazed at the gathering sea of clouds, his heart seemed to be gripped by an invisible hand. In front of nature, no matter how strong one is, one will lament his own insignificance. Unspokenly, they knew that this calm was just the calm before the storm, a sign, a prelude to the sedimentation of natural forces. Chapter 85, The Sea Split into 2. The sky gradually lost its original brilliant colors and became grey. The waves at the seaside burst out with their tremendous power, and the entire sea became more and more turbulent. The sea breeze blew freely, rolling up the sand, leaving only the depressing twilight and the increasingly desolate sea level. The once bustling port is now deserted, and all peaceful daily routines will be interrupted. On the eve of the tsunami, the whole world seemed to be holding its breath. No more birds flew low over the sky, and even the most playful seagulls sensed the ominous atmosphere and hurried back to their nests. The evening breeze carries a faint mist and an imperceptible strange smell, which is the most real warning from nature. Jinan stood in the corridor, holding the railing, looking through the swaying lights, staring at the rolling waves. He tightened his coat around himself to keep out the chill of the night. The tense atmosphere in the City of 7 Waters is like a hemp rope on the beach, which becomes increasingly tight as it is soaked by the tide. The air was filled with an unexpected sense of oppression, making it difficult for everyone to breathe. They knew that they were at the forefront of this severe weather, and the humid and salty air told them that a tsunami was coming. The waves on the sea began to beat rhythmically against the rocks, like a huge orchestra playing the prelude of fate. Through the dim night, Jinan and his friends could feel every vibration on the water surface, and every wave seemed to be telling them the warning of a rapid current. At this moment, the entire natural world is preparing for the spectacular scene that is about to happen. The sea breeze, waves, and dark sky all become the silent melody before the coming tsunami. The tsunami happens once a year. Jinan leaned against the door, sighing as he looked at the magnificent weather. Tom stood aside with his arms folded, sighed, and said, "The economic situation here is not good to begin with, and the annual tsunami makes people's lives even worse." He recalled those helpless eyes and trembling figures. Whenever he talked about the tragic situation, the corners of his mouth would tremble unconsciously. The fishermen lost their boats, and the merchants lost their shops. On this island, tourism has developed very slowly. At this time, there are no tourists coming here. Jinan listened quietly, his expression changing from following the old man's emotions to gradually becoming solemn, and the light in his eyes was his recognition of the old man's experience and his persistence in the future. He knew very well that the tsunami brought not only economic losses, but also the collapse of the entire island's ecology and the island's economic pillars. Many people would lose their livelihood because of the tsunami and even starve to death on the streets. "But we won't be crushed by these things," said Tom, his tone firm and powerful. He stood up like a pillar of support, his eyes firm and unwavering. He gently patted Jinan's shoulder and said, "I believe that through our joint efforts, we will not only bring this island back to life, but also make it better." Jinan thought for a moment and realized that the other party had already started researching the sea train. For Tom, the world's #1 shipbuilder, simply building ships could not satisfy his creative desire. He wanted to create something to change the island. Tom looked at the sky, turned to Jinan and the other 2 and said, "It's almost time. You should follow me to the 7 Water City to avoid the tsunami. We have a special resting place up there where no one will disturb us." At the shipbuilding square, the people in Tom's studio were already prepared, carrying only basic daily necessities. They were very familiar with the evacuation procedures and knew why they had to leave for the top of the island so late, but they had no complaints. They knew very well what kind of person Mr. Tom was. Then let us go. Tom led the group toward an inconspicuous path that wound its way to their shelter. Jinan and the other two followed. The road was full of rocks and weeds, and it looked like it hadn't been taken care of for a long time. After walking around for half an hour, they arrived at the top of the island. At the highest peak of the island, the air seemed to solidify into heavy waves. Jinan stood here, and in his open vision, he saw the clouds in the sky gathering into a dark blue territory, which was hovering low and violently above the sea. It was the calm before the tsunami, an uneasy silence that foreshadowed the coming storm. An invisible sense of oppression could be felt on the body, as if the entire island was trembling in fear. Jinan closed his eyes, took a deep breath, let his breathing echo with the surging momentum between heaven and earth, and found a sense of transcendence in the raging atmosphere. Opening his eyes, his pupils reflected the crests of waves piling up on the distant sea surface. Lightning flashed through the dark clouds like a snake, accompanied by rolling thunder, foreshadowing the unstoppable power of nature. The smell of a brewing tsunami became more and more obvious, and the trees on the island seemed to feel the threat. They swayed wildly in the wind, making rustling warning sounds. Boom! The tsunami rushed in like a giant beast, with surging waves hundreds of meters high, carrying the power to devour everything, and mercilessly hitting the buildings on the outskirts of the island. At that moment, the sky and the earth seemed to lose their color, leaving only the surging white and the pitch black of the night. Buildings are so fragile in the face of unpredictable natural forces. The houses were swept away by the waves as if by a giant. The wooden structures were peeled off piece by piece like paper under the impact of the sea water and then disappeared in the surging waves. Even those concrete buildings that seemed solid made heartbreaking creaking sounds under such a huge impact force, and seemed like they would collapse at the next moment. The sound of windows breaking, metal twisting, wood breaking, everything was mixed in with the roar of the huge waves. The streets turned into rivers, and boats that had lost control drifted in all directions, drifting blindly in the dark night. Not good! There was an exclamation from the crowd. This tsunami was bigger than any previous one. The people of the Seven Water City had already reached the highest point of the island, but the tsunami was about to reach this platform. The people hiding here were in a panic. The cold and wet breath of the tsunami could already be felt. Louder screams broke out among the crowd. They tightly grasped anything around them that could support them, but deep down they knew that such efforts might not be of much help. The whistling wind and the roar of huge waves almost drowned out every breath, but people's heartbeats were even more rapid. However, Chiang! A ray of cold light flickered between the dim sky and earth, and a green light streaked across the air. The mighty tsunami was split into two. You have to know that this is a huge wave hundreds of meters high. Seeing that the tsunami that could easily kill tens of thousands of people was easily resolved, everyone present stared with their eyes as wide as bells. Looking at the scene happening before their eyes in disbelief. At the back of the square, tens of thousands of people opened their mouths wide, too surprised to make a sound. Watching the huge knife mark that split the sea in half slowly disappear. Chapter 86 The Devil from Hell. You are really a hidden talent. Tom looked at Jinan, whose height was not even up to his shoulders, and marveled at him. The studio members around were also extremely curious about Jinan's actions just now. They found it incredible that someone with such strength would stay by their side like this. It's nothing, nothing. Jinan waved his hand and said modestly. It seems that any swordsman can do something like destroying a tsunami. He had not been sure about being able to do this, but he did not expect it to be so easy. Zoro's flying slash can easily deal with the mountain-like pika, and now it seems that his slash can easily deal with a tsunami. In the eyes of those people in the studio, Jinan was being too modest, and accomplishing such a thing was beyond their imagination. At the same time, the Navy headquarters investigators hidden among the people reported everything about the Seven Water City to the headquarters. Zephyr from the Navy headquarters put down the den mushi in his hand with a complicated expression. He didn't expect that the boy would give him a big blow not long after completing the mission. There are actually such interesting juniors among this batch of recruits. Our Navy is really full of talented people. Sitting on the sofa in Zifa's office was a man with a red flower on his chest and a cigar between his fingers. He showed great interest in the person reporting on the phone. I met Jinan once before. He's a nice guy. Borsellino also sat down on the sofa on the other side, still looking nonchalant. Borsellino seemed to care about nothing, but those who knew him knew that this guy was extremely powerful and had a certain influence within the navy. You guys should take care of your own things first. Zifa said, looking at the two outstanding students in front of him. The personalities of these two guys are not much better than Jinan. Now that they have completed the graduation procedures and officially become general officers of the Navy headquarters, no one can guess what will happen to the Navy in the future. The difficulty of this year's training camp has increased a lot compared to our time. We have to let those new recruits wipe out the pirates. Borsellino curled his lips while trimming his nails. Others could not guess what he was thinking. Sakaski took a puff of his cigar and said, "How could we let them go and die? There were people following them. Otherwise, if half of them could come back safely, it would be because they were lucky. Pirates will not engage in a fair fight with the Navy. When their lives are threatened, they will use any means necessary. Newbies may not be able to withstand those sinister tactics." Of the sailors who entered the training camp at the same time as Sakaski and his colleagues, less than half are still fighting on the front line compared to the beginning. The Navy is not a comfortable profession, you may face death at any time. It's normal to be a little protective of newcomers. Borsellino said lightly, "If there is no fresh blood, Teacher Zifa will have a headache." That's right. It's because the training camp is to select the best from the best, so this task was assigned at the beginning. Zifa's graduation requirements for students are simple. It will be enough if you can complete the mission safely when leading a team in the future. If you don't have that ability, it is better to choose to quit at the beginning and do clerical work. That way, at least lives won't be threatened. The tsunami occurred at the same time. An unnamed island in the first half of the Grand Line. The night is gloomy. Along with the bleak moonlight, the interior of the desolate island was occupied by a terrifying red light. The flames of the bonfire danced, illuminating not a warm gathering but a scene of hell on earth. The pirates took the firewood from the campfire and set fire to the houses on the island. The flames quickly spread in all directions, and the house made crackling sounds as it burned. Before long, all the surrounding buildings were reduced to charcoal. The island was littered with the bodies of civilians, their blood dyeing the land dark red. Bah! The pirate spat on the corpse. What poor bastards! Such a big island doesn't even have 100 million berries. How unlucky! He looked at the pirate next to him and asked, "Is everything on this island here?" "Admiral Orlumbus, these guys are too poor. All their stuff is left here." The pirates were also very dissatisfied. They had more than 20 ships looting here together, but only got this little bit. The effort and reward were totally disproportionate. The screams pierced the silent night sky. There were still people on the island being tortured by the pirates. There were endless sounds of resentful curses, but more often there were echoes of pain and despair. "We can't let these damned untouchables get away with it. Kill all the men to save food. The women can be taken away and sold to slave owners to make a little money." Orlumbus gave orders to his subordinates. He wanted to squeeze out all the value of these people. He could enjoy the pretty women first and then sell them. Although the price would be lower, it would not be a loss. Afterwards, the pirates' laughter spread out amidst teasing words, forming a sharp contrast with the wailing and cursing. There was not only no sympathy and compassion in these laughters, but more of cruelty and mockery. Their faces, illuminated by the firelight, were twisted with evil delight. Suddenly, a pirate ran over from the pirate ship with a smile on his face. "Admiral, good news." The brothers who stayed on the outer islands of the Seven Water City sent a message. They observed that the area had been hit by a tsunami. Orlumbus grinned, he had been waiting for this moment for a while. It had been more than a year since the last time he added ships. The current ships could no longer afford more crew members, and he urgently needed to add more ships to the pirate group. After the tsunami, the defenses of the Seven Water City are at their lowest every year, and those annoying navies will not be stationed there. Although he was not afraid of the navy, if he interfered with the manufacturing progress of the pirate ship, it would take him longer to go to sea next time, and he didn't want to go through so much trouble. Feeding a boatload of people is a huge expense, not to mention that he has more than 20 boatloads of people to feed. "Keep reveling and dancing, young ones," Orlumbus shouted, "if we are not satisfied on this island, we will continue to look for the next one. We pirates have the final say on this sea. Someone has to harvest the fat pigs. Follow me, and I guarantee you'll have delicious food and drinks." After a moment of silence, the pirates burst into loud cheers, and the swords in their hands collided with each other, making a sound that reached the sky. Long live the Admiral! Let's keep fucking him on the next island! For freedom! The cheers on the island grew louder. The flames shooting up into the sky made the pirates look like devils crawling out of hell. Chapter 87 After the Tsunami. On the streets of the Seven Water City after the tsunami, the once extremely sturdy hulls turned into wreckage scattered all over the island. The broken bridge ruins and scattered tools that had floated from somewhere were scattered all over the ground, painting an extremely chaotic picture. Jinan and his group walked along the street that had been completely changed by the tsunami. There were many residents standing on the roadside with happy eyes. They looked at where they lived and checked their losses over and over again. Because of the frequent tsunamis, the houses here are built extremely solidly, and are often destroyed by tsunamis halfway. Therefore, the locals found that compared with previous years, their losses this time had been infinitely reduced, and the resources brought by the tsunami were even more than in previous years. Tsunamis not only bring disaster and destruction, but also carry some supplies that are difficult to obtain under normal circumstances, such as the salt used by the people of the Seven Water City. Walking happily across the wet ground, people's footsteps seemed increasingly relaxed, enjoying the calm after the tsunami. The waves that hit the shore slowly receded, but they were unable to take away the mud and chaos on the ground. Those wooden boards eroded by the red tide were once the hard hull of the ship, but now they are broken and lie quietly on the beach, telling everything that happened here. It will take some time for people to return to their pre-tsunami lives. When Jinan and his friends returned to Tom's studio, they saw a horrific scene. The shattered wreckage of the ship is tangled together, and the once busy production line is now in ruins, with silt piled up everywhere. When I first came here, the laughter and shouts of the workers mixed together. Although it was a little messy here, it was full of the atmosphere of life. Now all that remains is the gradually drying mud and the occasional sound of the sea breeze hitting the metal wreckage. Ha 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 ha, this place has become like this again. Tom was already used to this scene. He scratched his hair and laughed out loud. The other people in the studio also smiled and shrugged. It was obvious that they were not surprised by this scene. Thanks to your help this time, otherwise it would take us a while to go home. Tom said happily, putting his arm around Jinan's shoulders. Jinan pointed at himself and continued, I am a marine. If I see someone in danger, I will naturally take action. But you still need to find a way to get through this difficult time. Situations like this will surely continue in the future. Jinan didn't want Tom's efforts to build the sea train to be slowed down because of this variable. After hearing Jinan's words, not only Tom, but everyone else present laughed. Tom patted his chest and said, I have found a way to deal with the impact of the tsunami. The Seven Waters City will definitely become better in the future. He is not affected by what happened today at all, his dream will come true on its own. Just as the sound of their conversation had not yet completely faded away, Kuzan hurried over with a den mushi. His appearance was like a stone thrown into a calm lake, breaking the previous tranquility. News. Navy. Kuzan breathed rapidly, his words coming out of his throat in a halting manner. Jinan asked him to ask his friends in the Navy to help them keep an eye on the situation in the waters of the Seven Water City. Today, they finally received news from there, but unfortunately. Jinan frowned. He sensed something ominous in Kuzan's intermittent words, and a bad premonition quietly rose in his chest. He took a few steps closer to Kuzan, lowered his voice, and asked, What's going on? Kuzan raised his head, his eyes full of sadness. Even though he knew that what happened was the norm in this world, he still couldn't accept it happening. A town not far from here, was massacred by pirates. The sudden news hit everyone's heart like a heavy hammer. The air seemed to freeze in an instant, followed by a silent and depressing atmosphere. Jinan's face turned pale in an instant, and a complex emotion surged in his heart, anger, sadness, and sympathy for the innocent victims. He clenched his fists, digging his fingernails into his palms. Although his body did not move, his heart was surging like the waves of the ocean. Tom also felt the urgency at this moment. Worried wrinkles appeared on his face, and he murmured, Alas, this world. Jinan raised his head suddenly, his eyes flashing with determination, Pack up and get ready to go. Got it. Kuzan responded and hurried to find Tianyueshi. In the sky, Jinan looked down at the sea, his eyes quickly scanning the surroundings. Due to the tsunami, there are fewer ships nearby. There were only some driftwood floating on the sea, and no ships were found. Not far ahead is one of the three major institutions under the world government, Judicial Island. A distinctive official ship cut through the waves, the emblem of the world government shining brightly in the morning light. The ship is steady and majestic, just like the power and order it represents, which cannot be questioned or challenged. The interweaving of light and shadow depicts the well-disciplined soldiers on the ship. At the bow, a tall figure stood. He was Spandine, the chief of the Special Department CP9. His face was stern, he was wearing a fitted black suit, his long, slightly curly hair was gently blown by the wind, and he exuded an aura of majesty that could not be ignored. His black and blue coat fluttered gently in the wind, and his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's as he stared at the sea ahead. The expression on Spandin's face was calm and almost indifferent, and it was difficult to tell what he was thinking from his expressionless appearance. He was as calm as still water, but his heart was like a whirlpool at the bottom of the sea, hiding unfathomable plans and intentions. Jinan and the others were suspended above the clouds, quietly watching Spandin's every move. Their observation haki allows them to easily observe everything within a certain range. With Spandin's strength, he cannot detect their existence at all. "Where are the pirates who were going to meet us?" Spandine asked, looking ahead. CP9, who was holding a den mushi in his hand, replied, "According to the news from the other side, they are still 3 days away from the Seven Water capital. That bunch of rubbish didn't keep their promise to us." Spandine said unhappily, "Pirates are really a bunch of untrustworthy rubbish. They said that there was some delay because they haven't collected all the goods we want yet." CP9 repeated what the pirates said. "These are all excuses. If I'm not mistaken, those guys will ask for a huge amount of money from us when the time comes." Spandine said lightly. "They need a group of slaves with good qualifications. If they are trained from a young age, they can make those slaves completely obey their superiors. There are many factions within the CP, and the people around him are all the team left by the previous one." He was worried about entrusting important matters to these people. "In the sky. There's no need for us to follow that disgusting guy down there." Tian Yueshi had no good feelings towards those who trafficked in human beings and felt sick when he saw such people. "Why don't we go kill him?" Tian Yueshi suggested, "People like him are a nuisance to the world." "It's not the time yet," Jinan said, squinting his eyes and looking at the man below. Chapter 88. The pirates arrive quietly. After one day. In the sky, 3 figures seemed to merge with the clouds on the horizon, floating quietly with the wind, silently following the official ship in the rolling waves below under the blue sky. "Are all the people in the CP like this?" Tian Yueshi asked. After flying with the group of people below for a day, she also knew clearly what kind of people they were. Simply put, these people do nothing but good things. There is nothing they haven't done. Spandine, he's willing to do anything to get promoted. Jin An's eyes narrowed slightly. He seriously overestimated the bottom line of these CP departments working for the world government. Assassination, robbery, framing, and silencing are just the simplest tools in CP. These people use them with ease, completely disregarding the life and death of those they target. It really embodies the idea of using any means to achieve the goal. The 3 people in the air always maintained a consistent speed and a certain distance from the ship below. They are going to stop at the small island ahead. Kuzan saw Spandine ordering the crew to dock the ship. It seems that this is the place where they agreed to meet with the pirates. Tian Yueshi said while looking at the island in front of him, "This island is quite big. Aren't they afraid of being discovered if they agree to trade in a place like this?" She saw signs of human life on the island and wondered what these CP9 guys were thinking. Sudden. Tian Yueshi pointed to the other side of the island and said, "Jinan, look." At the edge of the island, Jinan and his companions stood on a high cliff, gazing into the distance. The sky turned from blue to grey, and a sense of uneasiness spread across the sea. In the distance, a dark cloud was approaching, but it was not a sign of a storm. Instead, it was dozens of pirate ships galloping fiercely and mightily, and the hideous skull flags on the sails fluttered in the sea breeze. The shadows of the pirate ships gradually formed a dense black barrier on the horizon, as if an unavoidable storm was approaching this once peaceful harbor. Each pirate ship is several times larger than the Navy's warships, and when they act together, they can create huge waves. Jinan stood in the front of the crowd, his gaze as cold and sharp as a sword, piercing through the haze in the distance. What kind of pirate group is it that has so many ships operating together? Every muscle in his body was tense, ready for the coming battle. Kuzan was also a little excited. He hadn't seen a pirate group of this size for a long time, and he was already eager to try. At such a moment, psychological anxiety was an emotion that had to be abandoned, so he took a deep breath and tried to calm the surging waves in his heart. Tian Yueshi was in an extremely excited state, stroking the long sword in his hand. None of them spoke, but they were all adjusting their mindsets and gathering their fighting spirit in their own way. There was excitement in their eyes. Even when facing an enemy that was hundreds of times larger than themselves. There was no word of fear in their hearts. The only thing I have is absolute confidence in my own abilities. No matter what kind of pirate group they are, we will kill as many as they come. Quzhan licked his lips, and a bloodthirsty light flashed in his eyes. Amid the surging waves, the pirate ship cuts through them. As the pirate ships got closer, the details of the pirate group began to become clear. The merciless sunlight cast down silver arrows, illuminating the flags flying high. At one glance, Jinnen's brow suddenly jumped, and he was delighted. That was not the mark of an ordinary pirate. We're lucky. The pirate ships in front of them are the target they have been pursuing for some time, the infamous Yodomaria pirates. For a moment, their hearts beat wildly, and every beat caused an echo in his chest. It's easy to get. Quzhan became even more excited. He also recognized the symbol on the flag at this moment, and the muscles on his face became tense. Maybe, they will be the first team to complete the mission this time. Their enemy, the target of their journey, was right before their eyes. Inside the island. The air was filled with the Icelanders' fear and timidity. Sharp warnings pierced the calm of the island. Along with the roar of waves and sea breeze, the slowly approaching black sails were like a turbulent undercurrent that hit the hearts of the Icelanders. The men, women, and children on the island were stunned by the appearance of these uninvited guests and looked at the sea in disbelief that turned their nightmare into reality. The pirates are coming. Find a place to hide. Women hurriedly rushed with their children to find hiding places, their wide eyes reflecting the approaching black silhouettes. The children felt the adults panic and started crying one after another. Their little hands tightly grasped their mother's skirts, and their little faces were full of confusion and fear. Lord Poseidon, please show up and save us, devout believers. People murmured ancient prayers with trembling lips, their sad eyes were fixed on the vast sea, as if seeking the protection of the sea god. Brothers, pick up your weapons and fight those pirates. The middle-aged men who were tasked with protecting the peace were preparing tools for self-defense and exchanging pale glances with each other. Although there were no words between them, their eyes revealed a common determination. If they resist, they will die. If they don't resist, they will also die. They would rather die heroically. Emotions spread rapidly across the island like a ignited fire. In the chaos, people began to organize themselves quickly. Although they were trembling inside, they were willing to make every effort to survive. The Icelanders sometimes gazed at the frosty sea in the distance, and sometimes glanced at the faces of their compatriots around them. Although they were afraid, they were more determined not to lose everything. A heavy atmosphere hung over everyone's heart. The sea breeze seemed to become even colder, and the air was filled with tension and uncertainty. Suddenly, the sky, which was clear just now, was covered by dark clouds that suddenly appeared, instantly dyeing the blue sky into ink black. Lightning flickered, jumped, and twisted in the clouds. The thunder that followed tore through the air, and the roars were like the roar of gods, making the people on the island feel unprecedented panic. People's faces became as grey and unclear as the sky. They stopped their hurried movements and looked up at the sky. Did their prayers work? Has Lord Poseidon really appeared? What's the situation? Orambos pushed open the hatch and watched the sudden change in the weather. Is this island so weird? The weather changes faster than in the New World. Orlumbus looked around and said, never mind, it's just a change in weather. Guys, take the goods. Those people should be impatient to wait. Admiral, we are ready and can set off at any time. Then let's go. Where do you want to go? A voice came from the sail, you just stay here. Chapter 89 Destruction. Who is it? Orlumbus looked up and looked directly at the place where the voice came from. When he saw someone approaching, the smile on his face suddenly froze and a hint of fear flashed in his eyes. It wasn't until the person appeared in front of him that he realized that this had already made him break out in a cold sweat. What made him even more terrified was that even though the person was in front of him, his observation haki still couldn't sense the person in front of him. Orlumbus shouted loudly, my friend, more friends mean more paths. Why don't we get to know each other? I have some connections in the second half of the Grand Line. Orambos patted his chest and promised, when I finish this deal, I will get drunk with you. I will definitely make you my friend. He made a choice that would be considered shameful by other pirates, and his tone was a mixture of pleading and flattery, trying to find a way out with words. There was a hint of unnaturalness in his voice. The roar that he usually used to scare his men now sounded more like that of an old sea wolf. The majesty in his voice disappeared without a trace. Being friends with pirates. Jinan landed lightly on the deck, his muscles bulging, and his observation haki covered the entire area where the pirates were. Under his gaze, the pirates on the deck seemed to have no secrets at all. Their every breath, every tremor, and every glance was seen by Jinan. We didn't seem to have provoked you, did we? Even though they didn't know Jinan's identity, they didn't want to provoke an enemy for no reason. You're all pirates now, do you still care if you provoke others? Jinan looked at the pirate who was speaking, with a hint of sarcasm on his face. Pirates are usually only concerned with enjoying their lives and are not interested in new things happening in the world. Naturally, they don't know about Jinan, a rising star in the navy. The next moment, a gleam of light flashed in Jinan's eyes. The surging aura that had been restrained suddenly spread rapidly around, and an invisible momentum rushed towards the pirates. With the sharp sound of a knife, the goosewing knife was already in his hand. The first thing that caught the pirate's eye was the terrifying light of the sword. It seems that we can't reach an agreement. Then I want to see how you can handle a fight with us alone. Amid Orlumbus's roar, the pirates raised their swords and surrounded the thin figure among themselves. Jinan seemed isolated and helpless, but he was as calm as a deep pool. He remained unmoved, having already anticipated this outcome. His expression did not change because of this, it was still so indifferent and calm. The pirates roared, the sound of blades cutting the wind, and they surrounded Jinan like a shadow. But what surprised them was that Jinan seemed to be able to foresee the trajectory of each knife and easily resolved their attacks. Boom! In an instant, the moves they used to attack with all their strength were suddenly bounced away, and a fierce wind blew up, raising a cloud of dust. The sudden change made everyone subconsciously raise their arms to block their eyes. Clang! In a flash, under the control of his sixth sense, Orlumbus raised his whip and barely blocked Jinan's attack. What a pity! I wanted to let you go on the journey with ease. Jinan smiled and stepped back. Orlumbus subconsciously looked for the figure that had just attacked him. Feeling a little relieved amidst his fear. The smoke cleared. The pirates regained their vision and realized that if they didn't quickly deal with the other side, they would fall into an even more disadvantageous situation. Don't worry about getting hurt, just do your best to kill him. If they hesitate any longer, they will never be able to leave here today. In this raging sword wind, Jinan's eyes remained calm, like the cold ice on the lake in winter without any waves. He accurately captured every movement of the enemy, and his muscles exploded at the necessary moment, executing one incredibly precise spinning kick and elbow strike after another. He drew his sword from bottom to top, and with a flash of blade light, a group of pirates were beheaded in an instant. He lowered his eyes to stare at the desperate pirate in front of him, and continued to swing his sword calmly. He happily reaped the lives of pirates one by one. Jinan's legs pressed down like springs, and then he jumped suddenly, as if a beam of arc light crossed the space, jumped over the enemies' heads, and landed cleverly behind them. When the pirates looked back, they could only see Jinan swinging the blade like the god of death, and then they felt themselves flying high into the sky. Orlumbus gritted his teeth and stared ahead, his hand holding the knife no longer shaking. With bloodshot eyes, he barely regained his fighting spirit and shouted to Jinan in the distance, "Now I can forgive you for what you did. If you still don't give up, I will keep you here no matter how much it costs." The pirates heard a hint of panic in Orlumbus's voice. Their admiral had gradually made a great name for himself in this sea, and had never shown such an expression when fighting with others. The pirates understood the captain's intention and acted silently, using their bodies to cover the captain's actions. Jinan dodged to the side, avoiding Orlumbus's embrace. He turned his hand slightly and grabbed the other's arm which he had not yet retracted. Fine beads of sweat oozed out of Orlumbus's forehead, and his originally indifferent face showed a hint of disbelief. The enormous force transmitted from his arm twisted his arm into an extremely exaggerated arc, and he could even hear the sound of his arm muscles breaking. What? The strong arm lasted less than a second before it was twisted off. He covered the wound that was bleeding and just opened his mouth to scream, when he felt someone grabbing his collar and flew backwards. It didn't stop until it had pierced through several pirate ships. Blood kept oozing from the corners of its mouth, and it almost went to hell. He held onto the hull, trying to support himself and stand up. Just as he was about to stand up, he was kicked to the ground again. In fear, he raised his head with all his strength. The demon was looking down at him. There was no human emotion in his eyes, only endless coldness. Orambos grinned and spat out a mouthful of blood. I admit defeat. You came here just for me. I am satisfied to die on this sea, and I have enjoyed it for so long. So many people have died in my hands. How wonderful! Jinan glanced at him and slashed his neck with a knife. People who don't repent before they die are completely inhumane. Jinan wiped the blood off the knife, kicked Orombo's body into the sea, turned around and flew towards the coast. The pirates were stunned for a moment as they watched the ship gradually sinking into the sea. They didn't even see how the other side did it. Besides, where did their captain, who was that big, go? Then a loud roar was heard, and then their ship changed its appearance. Their ships are built by highly skilled shipbuilders using high-strength alloys. The remaining pirates swallowed. Chapter 90 Return to the Seven Water City. Everything you want is here. Kuzan handed over the den mushi in his hand and looked at everything Jinan had caused in front of him. Thank you. Jinan put the den mushi in his arms. The contents saved in the den mushi may not be of much use, but since it's rare to encounter Spandine, it's a good idea to keep a copy of his evidence. You didn't even leave this one alive. Kuzan looked around and found only blood on the beach, without any trace of pirates. Jinan nodded. What's the point of staying in this world for a bunch of rubbish? There are still some people in the cabin. We will make arrangements later. He looked at the pirate ship not far away. Human trafficking was really profitable. Most pirate groups would capture a group of people and lock them in the cabin. Tian Yueshi walked out of the cabin and stood on the deck and asked, "Are we ready to return?" She saw the people who were kidnapped by pirates in the cabin and felt extremely sad. I glanced at Jinan. She was also rescued from the human traffickers by him. She was also very glad that she met Jinan, who led her to her current path. Ready to go at any time. The mission is completed, so they have to prepare to return to the Navy headquarters. However, our headquarters asked us to go to the Seven Water City again. Someone will pick us up there. The news from the headquarters also further confirmed that there was someone following these new recruits in the training camp. It is not only to monitor their task completion, but also to protect their safety. However, the person responsible for following Jinan and the other two could not find them after they flew into the sky, and finally had to give up following them. If I return to the Seven Water capital, I'm going to try the water meat there. I heard it's delicious. Since Kuzan has been with Jinan, in addition to his hobby of drinking, he has also developed a hobby of tasting delicious food. Don't even think about it. We don't have that much time for you to wander around. Tian Yueshi told the truth. Bad woman. Kuzan complained, Jinan, you better take care of her. She's even depriving me of my hobbies. I think what Tian Yueshi said is right. Jinan paused and continued, from now on, you are not allowed to drink during work hours. If I smell it again, you will sober up in the sea. You. Kuzan pointed at the two people opposite. What's wrong? Jinan glanced at him. Kuzan resolutely admitted his mistake, nodded and said, I promise to complete the task. At the edge of the island, coconut trees swayed to form a unique silhouette, and people gathered here silently. Their eyes were firmly fixed on the pirate ship not far away, and they saw several agile young men pulling a thin line back from the pirate ship and coming to a place far away from the pirate ship. Suddenly, they brought the torch close to the thin wire, and the next moment, time seemed to stand still. As the fuse became shorter and shorter, flames suddenly shot up into the sky where the pirate ship was. The orange-red light shone brilliantly in the night, illuminating every face. Boom! With a loud bang, a black mushroom cloud rose into the sky, and the blazing flames made the sea boil. The huge shock wave caused the island to tremble, the pirate ship was engulfed by fierce flames. And the thread hanging overhead turned into blackened wreckage in an instant. The whole world turned red at this moment. People smiled at each other. They were all prepared to fight the pirates to the death, but they didn't expect to be saved by Jinan and the others. I originally thought you would keep these pirate ships. Jinan said, looking at the fire in front of him. Selling the pirate ship is a huge income. Moreover, the materials used in these pirate ships are very exquisite, so it is a good choice to dismantle them and use them to build houses. The people on the island shook their heads and said, there is no point in keeping these things. We just want to live a peaceful life. Besides, burning the pirate ship on the coast can also send a wrong message to pirates who approach this island in the future. So many pirate ships being burned outside the island can serve as a deterrent to small pirate groups. As an island that is unable to join the world government, they can only use this simple method to prevent the invasion of pirates. Although, probably, not very useful. But keeping the pirate ship would only cause trouble for them. Amid the mountains of timber, sawdust flew everywhere, and the newly recruited shipwright assistants were anxiously trying to keep up with the pace of the trade. I beg you, you should learn from me from now on. A man should face challenges head-on. I will train you to be an expert shipbuilder. Tom stood beside the young boy. He patted his shoulders with his rough big hands, his eyes full of encouragement. Take it easy, kid, Tom said, his voice like a summer breeze blowing across the sea. Every master learns from his mistakes. Just remember that building a boat requires not only hands, but also heart. After hearing what Tom said, the boy's eyes sparkled with hope again. He gripped the tools tightly, a smile appeared on his determined face, and he devoted himself to the work of shipbuilding again. Jinan and the other two stood at the door of the workshop and witnessed this heartwarming scene. They looked at each other, with a hint of doubt in their eyes. Oh! The resounding man sees his acquaintance coming back. When Tom saw the figure appearing at the door, he put down what he was doing, smiled, opened his arms, and gave Jinan a hug. Jinan took a step forward and raised his dusty face. Haha, we come to disturb you again. You really haven't changed at all. You are always so energetic. Is this boy your new student? Jinan looked at the young man who was working hard and felt that he looked familiar. Tom looked at the boy who was studying seriously and smiled widely. Yes, but he is not just an apprentice. I train him as my successor. His talent is no less than that of an old man like me. Congratulations, then. Jinan pulled Tom to a deserted place and whispered, the world government has set its sights on the Seven Waters City. You should pay attention to the unfamiliar faces around you. Jinan placed the den mushi in the palm of his hand and played the sound he had recorded previously. He also heard the conversation in den mushi on the way here. He didn't expect that the world government had set its sights on Water 7 so early. There is no way around it. After all, 800 years ago, the battleship named Pluto was built here. Why did you tell me such an important thing? Tom looked at the other person with complicated eyes. Because I admire you. Jinan said, this kind of thing is very important to you, but to me, it has no value. Tom hesitated for a moment and asked, do you know why they are so interested in this place? There was no mention of that thing in den mushi. He brought up this topic because he wanted to share the biggest secret in his heart with the other person. Because of Pluto. Jinan replied. Tom found that he seemed to be increasingly unable to understand the other party. Jinan seemed to know everything. You know Pluto. Chapter 91 Cooperation. It doesn't matter how I know that. What's important is, you've been targeted by the CP. Jinan patted Tom's shoulder, watching his face gradually become serious. Yes, these are really not important. Tom sighed, it seems that I can't escape it. In this case, I have to hurry up. Tom cheered up. He wanted to complete the production of the sea train within the limited time. Inside the shipbuilding workshop, Asibagu, who was originally busy with his work, also showed a solemn expression on his face. He knew very well that if the world government was going to take action here, they would be completely unable to resist. As soon as he came here, he knew what Tom had done. He believed that the other party built the ship for Roger, so he was targeted by the world government. With his eyes flickering, he slowly spoke, why do we have to bear the unnecessary pressure for the mistakes made by the ship owner after building the ship? And what exactly is Pluto? No matter what kind of ship you build, there is no distinction between good and evil. It doesn't matter what kind of ship you build in the future. Tom saw Ispago's expression and comforted him softly. No matter who the ship you build hurts, even if it destroys the world, the owner who built it must protect it. Only the person who built it cannot deny it or blame it. A man should face up to the ship he built. Icebag's eyes widened, I understand, but I don't want to. Hey, that's not what I meant. It hasn't come to that point yet. Jinan hurriedly interrupted the two people who were imagining. Tom glanced at Jinan and asked curiously, didn't you say that we have been targeted? As a famous person, of course I want to fulfill my dream in a limited time. What's wrong with that? They are just suspicious. As long as you dispel their suspicion, all difficulties will be solved. Jinan continued, or you can choose to run away directly. As long as you run to a place where no one knows you and start a new life, maybe you won't be threatened by the world government. Jinan walked to a workstation and sat down. He was telling the truth. Based on his understanding of this world, as long as he disguised himself and kept a low profile, the probability of being recognized would be very low. The prerequisite is that Tom can suppress his desire to build ships. There are not many people in the world who have his level of ability. After all, the world government has just begun to focus on the 7 water cities, and nothing has been finalized yet. Everyone present shook their heads at Jinan's suggestion. They all made a living by building ships, and they would have no way to survive after changing their identities. It's easier said than done to dispel doubts. Tom also doesn't think these two methods can be achieved. It is easy to plant the seeds of doubt, but it is impossible to eliminate them. The attraction of Pluto is too great. The world government would rather wrongly accuse a good person than let go of someone who deserves their attention. Tom spoke his mind directly, without leaving any room for luck. Pluto, Jinan doesn't need the blueprints, he knows where the real thing is stored. He just doesn't want Tom to be wrongly accused and killed like in the original book. Tom knew that Jinan had other ways to help them get through this difficult time. I just want to continue building ships, and I can promise you anything else. I want to reach a cooperation with you. My naval base is still in need of some excellent shipbuilders. If possible, you can communicate more with the Navy in the future. As for the matter of Pluto, I will block it for you. It is easy to block the world government's prying eyes by spreading a piece of gossip and diverting the world government's attention. For example, draw a fake blueprint, make it look a little old, and place it in a small auction house or a secret treasure trove. Then arrange for some lucky people to obtain this blueprint. Allowing true and false news to spread in this world can greatly affect the accuracy of intelligence obtained by the world government. Cooperating with the Navy might be a good choice. Tom changed the subject, but the Navy is also a subordinate agency of the world government. If we cooperate with the Navy, won't it be easier for them to find us? He didn't know Jinan's next arrangements, so it was normal for him to have concerns. But if I refuse, I will probably be targeted by those people in the world government in the end. Tom looked at Jinan. I believe in you, so I will choose to cooperate with you. As for the other Navy, I will not accompany you. No problem. I don't want the entire Navy to cooperate with you. After all, you, the world's #1 shipbuilder, have more important things to accomplish. Jinan stretched out his hand and shook hands with Tom. Mr. Tom, are you really ready to cooperate with the Navy? Asked Ispagu. Of course. Don't you trust Jinan? Maybe you will be glad to cooperate with him in the future. He is a well-known man and his words are trustworthy. Tom grinned. He believed in his own judgment. Jinan looked at Tom, who was laughing, nodded slightly and said, if you want to complete your idea, I suggest you integrate the entire shipyard of the 7 water city. Only when you have absolute say will it be easier to achieve your goal. After a pause, he continued, let Tom's studio become the best shipyard in 7 waters, or even in the world. I hope you can connect your vision to more places. In the original world line, Ispagu also accomplished everything Jinan said through his own efforts. In his opinion, it is only a matter of time before the shipbuilding industry of the 7 water cities is unified. After listening to Jinan's plan, Tom couldn't help but nodded. He also agreed with the other party's proposal. He already had the idea of making a water train. The next step was to spend a lot of manpower and material resources on research and development. He has absolute confidence in his ideas. I will definitely do all this. I will pay you a research and development fee first. After the actual product is manufactured, I hope you can go to Nanhai to build a batch for me. Jinan has been coveting the sea train for a long time. With that thing, the economy and other aspects of the South China Sea will achieve unprecedented development. You know, sea trains are much faster than warships. When they heard that there was money, Tom and Ispagu's eyes lit up. Tom's studio was desperate for money, and with the money, they could do anything. No problem. Tom assured, patting his chest. Chapter 92 Result. Just when Jinan had just finished communicating with Tom on how to quickly integrate the 7 water cities, the Navy following Jinan and his party also arrived at the port of the 7 water city again. The sailors got off the warship tiredly. They had been working overtime for several days in a row and had suffered a lot in order to find the 3 people. This journey is really exhausting. That's right. I thought it was just a simple mission to protect the new students, but I ended up being exhausted. Not only are we tired, but we also saw such a miserable scene. Those pirates really deserved to die. Who said it wasn't? All the residents of an island are gone. It would be a bargain for them if they just died. The sailors sat in a restaurant and talked about what they had seen and heard during the voyage. I didn't expect that the pirate group that massacred all the islands would be the target of Colonel Jinan's mission this time. A marine, with his hands on the table, almost jumped up from his chair. Thousands of pirates were defeated by Colonel Jinan alone. The residents around looked over, shocked and incredulous. The cafeteria was filled with noisy discussions, and everyone seemed to want to find out the truth. Another Navy officer stepped forward and used his rough arms to illustrate the brutality of the battlefield. Look at the wreckage of pirate ships left by the island. There are more than 20 ships. I can't imagine the scene. Besides, I heard that Colonel Jinan didn't even have a scratch. He's really like a god of war. A young Navy leaned against the door, his tone full of admiration for Jinan. The residents sat or stood, their ears slightly stretched out to catch the fragments of heroic anecdotes that came from time to time in the chaos. Several children stopped using the spoons that were filled with sauce, and looked blankly, as if they could picture Jinan's unparalleled bravery in their minds. An old woman with wrinkles on her forehead sighed to her old friend in front of her, there are such people in this world who can do such a thing with their own efforts. The hotel owner leaned behind the counter, thinking about the adventurous life he dreamed of when he was young, and a thoughtful look appeared in his eyes. Although he had never seen the man the Navy was talking about, the heroic deeds they described were like huge waves in the deep sea, hitting his heart wave after wave. Everyone unconsciously raised a smile of admiration at the corner of their mouth. Even the chefs who only dealt with pots and pans all day long had to admit that no matter how ordinary their life was, they would yearn for such deeds. On the outskirts of the wreck island, a figure walked quickly using moon steps and finally arrived outside Tom's studio. Colonel Jinan, Colonel Kuzan, Lieutenant Colonel Tianyushi, we have been ordered to take you back to the Marine headquarters. Are you here? Jinan looked at the man in military uniform outside. Judging from the shoulder straps, the other party's position was several levels higher than his, and he was a major general in the headquarters. The person being protected in secret is at least a major general. It seems that the headquarters is quite caring towards these new recruits. We have already counted all your achievements. The major general said with shock, a total of 22 pirate ships, all burned on the coast of Barga Island. There was a spire made of human heads piled up on the beach, a total of 2,254 heads. 234 civilians were rescued from the cabin and have all been sent back home. Treasures are piled up on the beach. And preliminary estimates show that the total value exceeds 10,000 baileys. When Tianyushi came, the two of them were much calmer. They stacked up the heads and collected the treasures and put them on the shore. The pupils of the people in Tom's studio contracted slightly. These data have been carefully calculated by the Navy and are absolutely accurate. They didn't expect that the other party would do such a big thing not long after leaving. You know, the number of people coming to their studio every year may not exceed 2,000, and the number of people killed by Jinan during this period alone exceeds this number. Moreover, those pirates have 1.9 million berries. How could a pirate group with so much money be simple stuff? They can't earn 6,000 million baileys a year just by building ships, and that's before deducting the cost. I don't know how that pirate group got such a huge amount of wealth. Since you have no objection, let's just return home. The major barely suppressed his surprise and asked Jinan. He knew that the man in front of him was already a rising star in the Navy, and might even be awarded the rank of Brigadier General after returning to headquarters. This kind of talent deserved his careful treatment. Brother Tom, we will go back to the Navy headquarters first. The affairs of the Seven Water City will be left to you. Jinan turned around and said to Tom behind him. Tom recovered from his shock, nodded and said, no problem, I'll take care of it. The major looked back and forth between the two of them. He felt that Jinan had been causing trouble again during the time he had been in the Seven Water City. But he didn't care, his mission was just to bring it back to Jinan. The sea breeze blew the warship's flag, making it flutter in the evening light. As the waves surged, the ship seemed to become more majestic and solemn as morale rose. The warship was slowly sailing towards the naval headquarters, and on the deck, a group of naval officers and soldiers stood solemnly, their eyes piercing through the tangled sea fog and focused on a heroic figure. He is the sole figure worshipped by this unit, a warrior who has made a great name for himself in the smoke of gunpowder. His back was reflected on the boundless sea illuminated by the sun, and his body was as straight as a flagpole defending glory. The sunlight gently shines on the epaulets of his military uniform, reflecting a dazzling light. This light is the accumulation of countless honors and responsibilities. The respect in the hearts of the officers and soldiers is like the tides surging in the sea, one wave higher than the other. Of course, this is how Jinan is seen by the Navy. The fans have their own idol filters, and they always look at their idols in a different way. Next to Jinan, a veteran soldier who had experienced many battles broke the silence. He stepped forward, saluted solemnly, and said in a steady and powerful voice, "You have won glory for our Navy. We will remember this honor in our hearts." With someone taking the lead, the sailors no longer suppressed their admiration. "Colonel Jinan is awesome. I want to apply to join your team. I want to give birth to a baby for you." Upon hearing the vicious words from his Navy men, the Major General's face turned green. It was the first time that he realized that these guys under his command were so dishonest that they could even say something like giving birth to a monkey. Seeing that the atmosphere here was so lively, Kuzan also wanted to join in the fun. "Don't go over there and make trouble." Tian Yueshi grabbed Kuzan's collar and said. She was in a bad mood. And felt a little uncomfortable looking at Jinan, who was surrounded by people. "We agreed to keep up with each other, but why do I feel like I'm getting farther and farther away from that man?" Chapter 93 Promotion. Navy Headquarters. The sailors were busy with their own affairs as usual. There were less than 100 naval soldiers lined up on the playground. "Hey, good morning, fellow newbies." Zifa appeared on the playground with a friendly smile on his face. However, the sailors present felt unwell all over. You know, they had just completed their mission not long ago. As a result, they were all called to the playground before they had much time to rest. Moreover, they found that there were much fewer people present today, and many people were wondering in their hearts whether something had happened to those people. "I didn't ask you to come here to reminisce about the past. You are all the ones who performed relatively well in this mission. You should be thankful. As for the rest, they have already packed up and returned home." Zifa used the calmest voice to speak the cruelest words. "Now, everyone stand at attention. Turn right and run 200 laps around the playground. After you finish, we can move on to the next training." The sailors did as they were told. They had seen the darkness of the sea and knew that their hard training now was to protect their own lives and those of their companions on the battlefield in the future. "Jinan, step out," Zifa said to Jinan alone. When the Navy heard Zifa's call, they did not make any special response. They all knew the specific content of Jinan's mission. If they could complete the mission so perfectly, their names would probably be among the people named by Zifa. "Roger that." Jinan walked out of the queue and followed Zifa towards the office. After entering the office, Jinan saw Zifa's reminder and gently closed the office door. Zifa sat on the sofa, staring at Jinan opposite him with a pair of sharp eyes. "Do you know why I called you here?" Zifa asked softly. Jinan shook his head, then nodded. "If I'm not mistaken, you are planning to give me a promotion." Zifa supported his hands on the table, nodded and said, "We are indeed going to promote you, but you need to wait here patiently for a while." Jinan was a little confused. Why was he so serious about getting a promotion? Was there something else he wanted to tell him? Zifa looked at him and smiled faintly. "Don't worry, this is a good thing for you." Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door, and then the office door was opened from the outside. A group of people who were very familiar to Jinan walked in. "Good boy, you completed the mission well this time. You deserve encouragement." After walking into the office, Cap patted Jinan's shoulder enthusiastically. "You really made our Navy proud this time. You killed more than 2,000 pirates without any delay. That's exactly what I wanted." Jinan rolled his eyes. This guy Garp is still as sloppy as ever. Didn't you see that Zhang Guo was staring at the two of them? Although Sengoku was helpless about Garp's behavior, he was also very happy this time. After all, Jinan had cleared out a cancer for them. "Okay, time to get down to business." Zhang Guo cleared his throat and looked at Jinan. "Logically speaking, you should have been promoted to a higher rank long ago based on what you've done during this period. But we all have some concerns that we hope you don't mind. Military rank is not something that can be promoted just because they want to. When it comes to the appointment of general officers, it is necessary to consult the world government. What's rare is that this application was actually approved. Jinan looked at the opposite side with some anticipation. It is better to have more promotions. After our discussion, we decided to award you the rank of Lieutenant General. Lieutenant General. Jinan opened his mouth wide. He had expected that he would be satisfied if he could be promoted to Major General, but unexpectedly, he got an unexpected surprise. That's right, Lieutenant General, Zifa repeated. Do you have any ideas? You can bring them up now, asked Zhang Guo. Jinan stood at attention, without making any requests, and said seriously. I will take responsibility for my promotion to Lieutenant General. Hearing Jin An's words, Zhang Guo nodded with satisfaction. Then we congratulate you, Lieutenant General Jin An. A Lieutenant General is already a high-ranking official in the Navy and enjoys excellent treatment. Of course, he also needs to shoulder corresponding responsibilities. Jinan rubbed his hands and asked, I am now a Lieutenant General, so what about the South China Sea? Zhang Guo said unhappily, of course you are still responsible for the South China Sea. We know that you treat that place as your own backyard, and we will not take away someone else's good things. It doesn't matter who controls the South China Sea, as those places always have very limited influence on the overall world situation. During the Zhang Guo period, they were not quite sure why Jinan attached so much importance to the South China Sea. That's good. That's good. Jinan breathed a sigh of relief. Only with a stable rear base can he have the confidence to gain a firm foothold in this world. In that case, we will announce this appointment to the world later. Zhang Guo said. Jinan nodded solemnly and replied, I will never let you down. After leaving Zifa's office, Jinan's mouth corners curled slightly uncontrollably. The more power he holds, the easier it is for him to do things. This twisted world is really disgusting, maybe it's time to make some changes. The day Jinan came out of Zifa's office, the news of Jin An's promotion to Lieutenant General spread like wildfire. The news spread throughout Marineford in a very short time, causing a great shock within the Navy. The reason is also very simple. The sailors who entered the naval training camp with him are still busy with training. However, Jinan, who entered the training camp at the same time, has already become a lieutenant general. How can this not be shocking? However, after people learned about what Jinan had done, they felt that his promotion to lieutenant general was a normal thing. At the Navy headquarters, Jinan's inauguration ceremony was just a simple one. The only people who attended were the top brass of the Navy headquarters and some of Jinan's friends. This was Jin An's initiative request, he didn't want to be in the spotlight. However, the inauguration ceremony of the Vice Admiral of the Naval Headquarters still attracted many reporters. As countless reporters took photos and recorded, reports about Jinan flew far away via newsbirds. Many people who had received favors from Jinan took to the streets with newspapers and cheered enthusiastically. On the newspaper, Jinan, dressed in military uniform, stood in the middle of a group of naval leaders, talking enthusiastically with the people around him with a smile on his face. Behind them, the huge word justice shines brightly in the sun. Chapter 94, Gaia Island. Put your hands up, I can spare your lives. Jinan stepped on the pirate who had lost the ability to move and glanced at the other pirates. Isn't it a bad idea for us to do this? Tian Yueshi tugged at the corner of Jin An's clothes and said to him. What's the big deal? Aren't we responsible for catching pirates? Jinan skillfully tied up all the remaining pirates with the hemp rope in his hand. What's more, thanks to them, all the merchant ships have disappeared. Oh! I forgot. I will go with you to beat up the pirates. Tian Yueshi nodded cutely, straightened his body, and looked at the pirates seriously. Although I have been trained in the training camp, the habit of not getting into trouble that I have developed during such a long period of wandering is not so easy to give up. Originally, Jinan and his friends were having a pleasant cruise in paradise and just took a ride on a ship along the way, but then this group of pirates set their sights on them. The result is what it is now. The entire pirate group has been wiped out and everyone is lying on the deck. You pirates are so good at picking your victims that you finally robbed me. This was the second time he was robbed by pirates, and he felt a little weird. We didn't expect that, we just picked a ship at random and ended up hitting a wall. The pirate captain was almost regretting his decision. I'm in a good mood today, so I won't kill you for now. Jinan dusted off his hands and walked straight into the pirate's cabin. What bad luck! Can a merchant ship have such powerful guards? We haven't opened for business for more than half a year. This world is so broken, we might as well just give it a quick death. The pirate captain was so pale and thin that tears were about to come out of the corners of his eyes. I really can't live anymore. The pirates on the side also started crying. Don't worry, you will have food to eat soon, and you don't have to live in fear like this anymore. Tian Yueshi comforted. Really? The pirate captain put away the sad expression on his face. He thought the woman opposite him was soft-hearted and was ready to let them go. Unfortunately, he was happy too early. Of course it's true. Tian Yueshi nodded. When this pirate ship arrives at the next island, we can send you to the naval base, so you don't have to worry about the rest of your life. You are so vicious. The pirate captain gnashed his teeth. First I gave them hope, then I did a 180 degrees turn. What a hateful woman. She had such a pretty face for nothing. I didn't say anything wrong. Tian Yueshi said innocently. Jinan walked out of the cabin and punched the pirate captain on the head. This guy is honest. Such a big ship, but in the end there is nothing. Jinan didn't want to pay too much attention to these pirates and was thinking about where to send these burdens. There was no way for Nanhai to go back. Just after he was promoted, he was exiled by Cyborg to the first half of the Grand Line to be a miserable worker. We seem to be almost reaching Gaia. Tian Yueshi said while looking at the pointer on his hand. Okay, let's continue on our journey, anywhere is fine. After tying the pirates together, Jinan nodded with satisfaction. Jinan picked up a cup of coke and lay down comfortably in the rocking chair. Catching some pirates while traveling can be regarded as completing the task assigned to him by the old man Kong. Comfortable, relaxing, refreshing. Tian Yueshi on the side also smiled. This kind of life was indeed quite good for her. After everything was ready, they sailed away from here. If Jinan guessed correctly, the Thunder Fruit was now located on a sky island 10,000 meters above Gaia Island. The islands where the fruits are stored are not big, and as long as he is willing to spend some time, he will most likely find them. Now, except for the Conqueror's Haki, which is nowhere to be found, he has cultivated the other two types of Haki to the level of proficiency, and can also control Ryuo with ease. His attainments in the 6 styles are among the best in the Navy, except for Iron Block. This thing is just tasteless. In terms of physical strength alone, he is not inferior to anyone in the world and can compete with people led by Kaido. In the naval base, he received long-term instruction from Zephyr, Garp, and Sengoku, but unfortunately he was unable to make any physical progress. At that time, Cap and the others were still marveling at the result. Your body is really enviable. Jinan knew that his physique was strong, but not strong enough. He hoped that he could become the only one in this world and leave all threats behind. Gaia Island. The ship stopped at the island port. Jinan and his men lowered the ladder and took the tied-up pirates to the local naval base. The town on the island is not big, but it is extremely lively. When the navy escorted pirates past, the merchants would always stop what they were doing, turn their backs to the sea breeze, and listen attentively. Pirates often come to this island because of the illusory legend of the Golden Land, but this is the first time I have seen a scene where they were escorted here. No outsiders are welcome here. As soon as Jinan and his companions entered the base, the navy of the base suddenly appeared from somewhere and impatiently drove the people in front of them away. However, before he could finish his words, he stared behind Jinan and the others in surprise. We won't go in. We'll just leave a few pirates here and leave. Tian Yueshi explained. The navy looked at the number of pirates and said hesitantly. We probably can't hold so many people here. As you can see, our base is too small. It doesn't matter, you can do whatever you want. Jinan waved his hand, it doesn't matter if you just kill him directly. At this moment, he was looking at the sky 10,000 meters above. Because the distance was too far, the observation Haki could not sense the location of Sky Island. You didn't come here just for the legend of the Golden Country, did you? The navy looked at the clothes worn by the people in front of him. They were obviously attire for exploration. Golden Land? Tian Yueshi asked doubtfully. They only came to this island because they sent pirates here, and they had no idea about the specific situation of the island. When the Marines saw Tianyu, their puzzled expressions did not seem fake, and they replied. This is a lie woven by a liar. I thought you were here for that thing. The fathers of the sailors had always lived on this island and they all scoffed at the legend, so they also came to hate the legend. Do you believe that legend? Tian Yueshi asked. Judging from her experience, any legend that has been passed down has a reason. All kinds of strange things happen in this world. It's a place full of gold. It's worth going to see it. Jinan said with a smile. He looked at the other person and asked, are you interested? I can take you to see. Do you know where the Golden Land is? She knew that the people on this island were very resistant to the Golden Land. So she lowered her voice and spoke. Of course. Chapter 95 Gate of Heaven. Watching the flame cloud surrounding his body slowly dissipate, Tian Yueshi reached out and grasped a piece of cloud. Anything can happen in this world. She never thought that she would come to this mysterious place in this way. Although we were clearly above the clouds, the feeling from our feet was extremely solid, no different from walking on ordinary land. Suddenly, a corner of the cloud began to fluctuate, as if it was gently lifted by an invisible force. The layers of white mist are dispersing, gradually revealing the secrets hidden behind them. Penetrating through the clouds, the scene before your eyes changes in an instant. The light shines through the gaps, casting mottled golden spots that scatter on a small island floating in the air. This small island is completely different from the island 1,000 meters below. Clusters of white clouds gently surround it like smoke, adding a touch of mystery to the place. This is the Sky Island. Tian Yueshi turned around and looked around. I didn't expect there are living things in the clouds. It seems that it is better to treat the clouds here as the sea. Various creatures, such as fish and octopuses, are swimming in the sea of clouds, scattered here and there, making it a feast for the eyes. The two of them groped their way forward. Are you from Qinghai? A strange voice came from the sea of clouds. What does Qinghai people mean? Tian Yueshi asked puzzledly. You don't need to worry about what this name means. You just need to know that when you come here, you must pay first. After paying, you can move on. The strange woman walked up to Jinan and the others. The gate to heaven is in front of us. If you want to enter from here, you must pay. The woman has a pair of wings on her back, like a real angel. It's true. There is a waterfall in front, and it says Gate of Heaven in front of it. Tian Yueshi said, pointing ahead. She was so shocked by the sight that she didn't hear what the angel woman said. Are you guys listening carefully? The angel took a picture of the two people with a camera. I'm listening. Jinan nodded, but we don't have the money here. Can we exchange it for tolls with something else? The other things are useless to us. You can choose not to pay the toll and go straight up, but if anything happens later, you will be responsible for it yourself. By the way, I'm Amazon, the supervisor of the Gate of Heaven, the woman said calmly. What do you mean by taking responsibility? Tian Yueshi asked puzzledly. What she meant is that if we go up directly without paying the toll, we will be treated as illegal immigrants. Jinan said, looking at the tall door in front of him. This rule is really outrageous. As a toll, they only accept the local currency. Tian Yueshi complained. This completely destroyed the Sky Island she had imagined. Where there are people, there are different rules. Isn't that normal? Amazon said lightly. Then what should we do now? Tian Yueshi looked at Jinan and asked. Without money, then I can only be considered a smuggler. Jinan shrugged and walked straight ahead. When Tian Yu heard the other party's words, she followed silently. She was curious about what would happen next. After Jinan and the others left, the woman quietly took out her den mushi. Heaven's Gate Supervisor Amazon reports to Almighty God and all responsible persons. 2 stowaways have passed through the Gate of Heaven and are heading for the Kingdom of God, the Sky Holy Land. Please enforce the sanctions of heaven. Jinan and his team went upstream along the waterfall built by the clouds. The curved waterfall connected the two areas. As time goes by, a hole shining with white light gradually appeared before their eyes. The next moment, they passed through the hole and arrived at a completely new area. The Kingdom of the White Sea God, the Sky Sanctuary. Slowly landing on the Sky Island, the two men steadied themselves and looked into the distance. There are sandy beaches not far from here, with buildings scattered among them covered by clouds. It's a completely different scenery from below. Tian Yueshi exclaimed. Jinan also looked around curiously. The scenery here completely surpassed the scenes in the anime. But this place is not so safe for them. He has not forgotten that they are now illegal immigrants. The people living here may not welcome them. If he guessed correctly, Ganfol is still the god of Sky Island. That guy should be easy to talk to. Do you want to stay here and rest for a while? Jinan asked Tianyu beside him. I will go wherever you go. Tian Yueshi said without thinking. Then let's take a look around first. It's a rare opportunity to come to an empty island. Jinan walked towards the town. He was not in a hurry to find the thunder fruit, as Enil was still just a little kid. The fruit is in the temple on the island, and it will be the same no matter when he goes to get it. Jinan and his companions quietly entered the town, where there were houses of various shapes. The two of them stood out in the town, where everyone had wings on their backs. It's been a long time since I've seen people from Qinghai come here. There are only two of them this time. I don't know what they are doing here. I hope they are not here to cause trouble. Many pirates have come here before. Fortunately, we have the protection of God. There are only two of them. I guess they wouldn't dare to do anything weird. The people of Sky Island talked in low voices, but no one took Jinan and the other two seriously. Hello, fellow villagers. May I ask if you sell fish caught in Qinghai? Jinan asked as he walked to the front of a shop. There is no way they can avoid smuggling, but if they can exchange some money here and pay off the money they owe, they will feel better. Oh? Fish from Qinghai are quite popular here. If you have them, I can buy them all. The boss looked excited, rubbing his hands and saying to the person in front of him with a smile. Tian Yueshi quietly pulled Jinan's clothes and said, "It seems we didn't catch any fish." Jinan patted the other person's hand and comforted him, "Since I said it, I definitely have it, so don't worry." After exchanging the money, Jinan took Tian Yueshi for a stroll on the island. The two people in front, "Stop. You have violated the laws here. Please come with us." A group of soldiers surrounded Jinan and his companion, and their attitude was quite polite. But if the other party does not cooperate, they don't mind using force. "You are all illegal immigrants, right?" asked the leader. "We didn't have the money before, but now we can give you the money," Jinan said. "Excuse me for disturbing you two. We will leave now." The team leader saluted the two men. He didn't expect it to go so smoothly. Since they had already received the money, there was no reason for them to stay here any longer, so they turned around and left with their men. What's more, the other party gave them some extra. They hadn't met such friendly people from Qinghai for a long time. After stretching himself, Jinan put the remaining money into his bag. Now that he was debt-free, he felt relieved. As a three-good young man of the new era, he would naturally do everything he could. Chapter 96 Enel. Under a huge tree in the forest. A short figure hid in the bushes, his eyes wandering around the lush woods behind him. The figure looked a little disheveled, with some bark fragments stuck in his hair and his body covered with small wounds. Although his appearance is not very good, his eyes exude a sharp aura. There seemed to be some hatred flowing in those calm eyes, and the whole person was like a bloodthirsty cub. "You don't have to hide. We know you are there. If you come out obediently, you can suffer less." A few small figures pushed aside the bushes, looking around as if they were looking for something. The boy hiding behind the tree had a panicked look in his eyes. He had no idea how he was caught up so quickly. He curled up his body, trying to hide deeper. "Hey, Enelu, keep hiding." Several hands pulled aside the grass and found the boy hiding behind it. Knowing that he had been discovered, Enel's eyes were a little terrified. Every time he was caught by these people, he would be beaten severely. He would rather go to a place where he would never be discovered than suffer this kind of pain. "Why don't you say anything, Enelu? Don't you like it?" Several people kicked each other hard and laughed loudly. "Hey! Don't pretend to be deaf and dumb, we are talking to you." The leader picked up a stone from the ground and smashed it hard at Enelu. Blood flowed from Enel's wound to the ground, but he still didn't dare to speak. He knew that if he resisted or obeyed their wishes, his fate would be even worse. As long as he could endure these beatings, the other party would lose interest in him, and then he would be temporarily relieved. As he traveled through the vast forest, Jinan felt a headache. The surrounding environment looks the same, and I don't know where Tian Yueshi has gone, at least he is not within the range of observation haki. He had been walking in here for a long time, but he didn't even see the shadow of the other party. When he walked into the woods, he wanted to find someone to ask, but there was no one there. "Okay." As the observation haki spread, Jinan's expression changed after a while and his eyes looked towards the northwest. It was the first time he had noticed so many people since entering the forest, but it didn't seem like anything good was happening there. There, he scanned the surrounding area and happened to see a group of children gathered together. When he saw clearly what was happening inside, he couldn't help but feel a little strange. One of the children inside looked somewhat familiar. Enel's expression was filled with fear, but he managed to hold back from making a sound. As a Bai person, you don't even have a pair of wings. It's really embarrassing for us. Do you think you are an undercover sent by those low-level humans? It's just that we feel sick when we see your body. Why don't you go to Qinghai to look for your relatives, ha 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 ha. Although these children are not very old, their malice is not small at all. Facing these people's attacks, a ferocious red glow appeared in Enilo's eyes. He really couldn't bear it anymore. This time the other party was beating him to death. If he didn't resist, he would be seriously injured. Enel bent his palm slightly and grabbed a handful of mud in his hand. Then he rolled forward, avoiding the attacks of those people, and scattered the mud in his hand into the eyes of several people. I'm really brave this time, but it's useless. Several people dodged the mud nimbly, and then slapped Enel without any hesitation. Snapped. Although it is just a child's hand, it still possesses great power. This slap made Enel's eyes flash with gold light. He fell to the ground with a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. So cruel. Jinan twitched his lips when he saw all this. These kids were fighting so recklessly. Hey, you guys, that's enough. If you keep fighting, he might not be able to hold on. Jinan stood in front of Enel and persuaded him. Who are you? You are really nosy. The leading boy didn't even raise his head and continued to kick Enel hard. Jinan's steady voice was like thunder in the evening breeze, enough. His voice startled the bullies. Jinan's eyes were as sharp as knives, and his serious face was full of unquestionable determination. Faced with Jinan, the children were stunned, and then they ran away in panic. As they disappeared into the darkness, Jin turned to check on the frightened child. He said in the gentlest tone possible, "It's okay, they're gone." The child raised his head, his eyes looked particularly clear because of tears. He looked at Jinan in confusion, as if he was judging whether the stranger in front of him could be trusted. Jinan squatted down gently and held out his hand. "My name is Jinan, you get up first." The child hesitated for a moment, then held Jinan's outstretched hand with his little hand, and replied softly, "Why are you helping me?" Jinan smiled and said, "Just do it when you encounter it, and you don't need a reason to help others." Enel didn't understand the other person's thoughts. In his mind, this Sky Island was more like a prison where he was imprisoned than a place to live. So, his dream is to reach the infinite land, where no one can hurt him. Of course, that was the previous thought. Enel had a very good impression of Jinan. The other party saved his life, and he had initial trust in Jinan. "Are you a pirate? I heard from the adults that most of the Qinghai people who come to Sky Island are pirates." Before Jinan could speak, Enel asked directly, although he didn't know what the pirate style of behavior was. "I'm not a pirate, but my purpose for coming here is the same as that of a pirate." "Purpose?" Enel asked doubtfully. "I heard that the supplies on Sky Island are not comparable to those in Qinghai." "Maybe." Jinan just smiled. Although his memory was a little fuzzy, he knew that there was a lot of gold on Sky Island, and the thunder fruit was also in the temple on the island. Thor Enel is still a bullied little kid, so the fruit must still be hidden there. As a token of your gratitude for helping me, I can act as your tour guide. No one is more familiar with the environment here than me. Enel felt that he should do something to repay this kind person, but after thinking it over, he could only do this simple thing. Jinan has no problem with that, he just needs to find Tianyueshi as soon as possible. Chapter 97 Ganfowl. The sun gradually sets, and the light and shadows in the forest become mottled. "Why did you come here?" Jinan sighed as he looked at the graceful woman standing in the forest. Tianyueshi's pretty face turned slightly red. "The scenery here really attracted me, and I walked here unknowingly. Now that we've found you, let's head to the next stop. After all, it's getting late now." Goo. Just then, a crisp sound broke the silence among the trees. Enel felt an indescribable embarrassment, and when he caught the laughing gazes of Jinan and Tianyu, his cheeks involuntarily turned red. He hasn't eaten for more than half a day. In order to cover up his sudden embarrassment, he scratched his head and said lightly, "Well, it's not far from our Paleadu. Let's try harder." Tianyueshi's voice was as clear as a mountain spring, and she hid her smile in her words. "Let's find a place to rest for a while." The three of them smiled at each other, put the embarrassment behind them, and began to discuss where to find food. "I haven't tried the food on Sky Island yet, I..." Dong 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 dong. Before Jinan finished speaking, he saw something falling from the sky, and the branches were crackling. What is that? Tianyueshi became alert instantly and placed both hands on the long sword. Just as the object was about to fall to the ground, Jinan reacted almost subconsciously. His body jumped forward like a spring, and he stretched out his hand and picked it up directly in his hand. Okay. The moment he grabbed it, Jinan felt that the weight of the thing in his hand was a little strange, and it looked a bit like armor. Thank you. The voice of thanks rang in Jinan's ears, and he saw two hands stretched out from the armor, waving wildly in the air. It's really a person. He was a man wearing heavy armor, with a burly build. His armor was intricately carved and gleaming with a mottled metallic luster, like a knight from an ancient legend, although the chaotic landing had left his armor covered with leaves and dirt. This outfit, and that iconic beard. Ganfurl? Jinan asked uncertainly. He still had some impression of this face, mainly because his beard was so recognizable. The current god of Sky Island is a god who loves his people. You know me. Under the armor, Ganfur's old face turned red. He felt helpless to be seen in such an embarrassing scene by people who knew him. You can let me go now. He felt very painful being lifted in the air like this. Okay. Jinan fell to the ground and loosened his hands. Ganfur landed steadily on the ground and coughed lightly to cover up his embarrassment at the moment. After Ganfur saw the people in front of him, he said, "You all look like people from Qinghai, right? Welcome to my country." Enel also reacted and quietly hid behind Tianyu Toki. He had complicated feelings towards Ganfur, both admiration and resentment. To thank you for what you have done, I would like to invite you to rest for a while where I live. It's dinner time now, Ganfur invited. Jinan wanted it more than ever. After looking at Tianyueshi, he nodded slightly. Pierre. Ganfur roared towards the sky. Call out. As he called out, a strange figure streaked across the sky. A giant bird spread its wings and took flight. Its pink feathers shone brightly in the sun, dotted with black spots. In an instant, the mysterious bird circled once and landed gracefully in front of everyone. Its eyes were extremely intelligent as it examined the strangers in front of it. What a strange bird! Jinan muttered. Tianyueshi looked at the unusual creature in front of her. She had never heard of such a creature. And at this moment, this strange creature appeared in front of them. Let's just take the Pierre and get out of here. Ganfur patted the giant bird with his hand and said, don't make the same mistake again next time. It was all Pierre's fault that he fell from the air, otherwise how could he make such a low-level mistake? Pierre nodded. He felt a little embarrassed and was anxious to go home, but he didn't expect to make such a mistake. Can I not go? Enelu whispered to Jinan, I see there are so many of you, one bird can't hold so many people. Boom! Ganfur gently patted the giant bird's body, and with a dull sound, the giant bird instantly turned into a winged horse. Just sit down now. Pierre is very strong. Ganfur said proudly. Oh my god, the horse has transformed, but it seems to be uglier. Tianyueshi was a little disgusted. Such an ugly horse is really hard to find in the world. Jinan and the others walked towards the temple with Ganfur. All you see are giant trees that reach the sky, and you can't help but marvel at the magic of this world. At such a high place, the plants and animals growing here are no different from those on the ground. It's incredible, everything on Sky Island is so interesting. Tianyueshi exclaimed behind Jinan. In front of him, Enelu was sitting on Pierre. When he heard Tianyueshi's sigh, he turned around and said with a smile, actually, I'm used to it. I also want to go to Qinghai to see the different scenery from here. Everyone present knew that Ganfur was just speaking casually. If he really wanted to go to the sea, even if he didn't stay there for a long time, a short stay would be fine. Soon, a magnificent building came into their sight, causing everyone to stop involuntarily. The building is snow-white all over, as if it was made of countless clouds. It towers into the clouds, and its top almost blends into the blue sky. When they reached the door, Ganfur said to the guards, go prepare some food for the guests. This is where I live, friends, let's go in. He led a few people into the building. Inside the main hall. After a few people sat down, Ganfur picked up a cup of tea, blew on it, and took a sip. We are short of supplies here, so we can only let you eat and drink whatever you want. Most of our people here are warm and welcoming. We occasionally salvage some supplies washed up by the ocean currents. If you have base, we can exchange them with you. A question mark rose in Tianyueshi's head, what is base? Bath should be called mud in Qinghai, Gan Fowle explained. We've seen a lot of islands along the way. I don't think you need any soil. In Tianyu's understanding, the towns here are all floating on the clouds. With such solid clouds, it makes no difference whether there is soil or not. If it were 400 years ago, it would be fine to live like this. Gan Fowle sighed and slowly told the troubled things about Sky Island. Chapter 98, Sky Island Past. It's all our ancestors' fault, otherwise our lives wouldn't be like this. More than 300 years ago, the island where the Shandia people lived was washed up to the Sky Island by the rising current. That scene is still passed down by word of mouth among the people of Sky Island. But because of that accident, our nightmare that lasted for nearly 400 years began. People at that time thought Bath was a gift from God and wanted to take all of Bath for themselves, but there were many residents living on Bath. From that time on, the war between the Sky Islanders and the Shandia people continues to this day. After listening to it, Jinan felt that what Ganfuer said was not much different from what he remembered. You should be trying to reconcile the conflict between the two sides now. Gan Fowle was a little surprised how a person who had just arrived at Sky Island knew this information, but he nodded and said, "That's right. I don't want future generations to repeat the path we've taken today. Peaceful coexistence can obviously lead to a win-win situation, but resentment has been accumulated for too long and it can't be done easily." Gan Fowle said with a firm look, "There has been a legend circulating on Sky Island that when the beautiful song at the beginning of the war spreads throughout Sky Island, the war will end. And I want to rely on the power of the people to accomplish what can only be done in the prophecy." Jinan agreed with the other party's idea. This kind of struggle that lasted for hundreds of years could never completely solve the problem. So, after so many years of hard work, I know that I cannot complete this task in a short period of time relying solely on my own abilities. Ganfuer's face turned red, and he continued, "So I would like to ask everyone from Qinghai. Go into the land where the Shandias live and send me their wishes for peace." Walking out of the temple, Jinan and the other two looked at the forest outside. "I don't know how much blood has been shed in this forest, and how many people have died here. Jinan, are we heading to where the Shandian people live now? I really hope that both sides can resolve the feud that has lasted for hundreds of years." Tian Yueshi said with some concern. Just now in the temple, they promised Gan Fowle to go there and deliver the message. But to be honest, she had no hope for such a thing. Although her wish was to successfully achieve her goal, this was a blood feud, so it would not be so smooth. Hundreds of years of grievances cannot be resolved by just gathering together and talking for a few words. Jinan looked at the soil under his feet. Besides, the Sky Island people have been occupying other people's homeland until now. If I were a Shandia, I would not choose reconciliation. Even if the chief wanted to agree, his men wouldn't agree. Then would the situation be better if the Sky Island people shared the island with the Shandian people? Tian Yueshi put forward her idea. "Sister, you are taking it for granted. From my point of view, I would not agree to share the island that I have built over so many years with a group of enemies who have been fighting each other for hundreds of years." Enlil retorted. Tian Yueshi clapped his hands and said, "It seems to be true. No rush, we can start with the legends here." Jinan used his observation haki to the extreme, looking for Xiongdara's location while answering Tian Yueshi's questions. There is a huge bell made of gold in the city of Shandora. Whenever it is struck, the sound resounds through the sky. The sound of the bell was the legendary song that Gan Fowle had just mentioned. On Sky Island, gold has no use to the people living here, as can be seen from the gold that Luffy and his friends took away when they left Sky Island. What the people of Sky Island value is land. A solution can also be obtained from here. So it's right here. It was so easy to find. Hey? I'm not ready yet. When Tian Yueshi was still pondering the legend of Sky Island, he suddenly found himself flying. "Can you tell me in advance next time?" A sound. Oh. The sound was still echoing in the area, but the three people had disappeared. "Where are we going?" Tian Yueshi looked at the forest which was becoming more and more remote, and felt that the surroundings were becoming more and more eerie. Jinan still walked in front and led the way. "We're almost there." They passed through a strange animal-head doorway and a cliff appeared in front of them. "This is a cliff. We are going to go under the cliff next." Looking at the steep cliffs filled with sea of clouds, Jinan smiled with satisfaction. It is because of being covered by the sea of clouds that Xiangdora has been preserved intact in this place. Although the clouds are beautiful, I still won't jump. I'll accompany you to this place. Enel felt that the two people in front of him were courting death. This was a cliff, and he didn't want to die in vain. Boom! Jinan didn't stay any longer. He just grabbed Enelo's collar, jumped up, and disappeared into the sea of clouds. Tian Yueshi also followed directly. Her curiosity was aroused. If a place was favored by Jinan, there must be a secret hidden in it. After the three people left, the clouds automatically filled the gaps left by them, as if no one had ever been to this place. Chirp, chirp. Passing through the sea of clouds, my feet touched the ground again. The first thing that catches your eye is a dazzling golden color. Before them was a city built of gold. Inside the city gate, an extremely majestic altar stands tall, and its entire structure is cast to look like a passage between the clouds and the sky. And in front of this altar leading to the mysterious fairyland, a huge vine is rising. The vine was like a rope of fate, winding and stretching towards the sky, and its top disappeared above the floating clouds. It towered into the clouds, like a bridge between heaven and earth, connecting the city to the clouds. A gust of wind blew, and the vine swayed slowly, making a series of low and pleasant sounds. This attracted the three people forward, and they began to approach the vine step by step. When their palms touched the vines, they felt a transfer of vitality and power. In front of this majestic vine, there is a huge gap, where something seemed to have been stored before. Aren't we here to look for something? Is it this thing? Tian Yueshi looked around. Apart from the gold, only this stone tablet was special. Jinan looked at a huge vine and said, "What we are looking for is in the sky." Chapter 99, The Lantern of Shandora. On the vines. Tian Yueshi raised his head and looked at the huge vines that broke through the clouds. Enelo felt like he was being taken flying around by Jinan for nothing. Not only was he shocked, but to him, coming to this golden city was completely meaningless. So, what's the point of us coming down here? Jinan pondered for a moment and looked at the city made of gold. Is gold not shiny enough? These yellow stones are of no use other than their strange color. Enelo couldn't understand the views of Jinan and the others. In the Sky Island area, base is obviously more precious, and stones can't be eaten. When Jinan saw the gold all over the ground, he almost forgot that the Sky Islanders and Shandia people had no interest in gold. Well, it seems that talking about gold with the people of Sky Island is completely meaningless. Tian Yueshi had a hunch, so what do we do now? That's right. It's just what you think. Jinan took light steps and his whole body instantly rushed into the sky, flying straight towards the top of the vine. At the top of the vines, above the clouds, is where the golden bell is located. The island of the gods, the temple. Ganfowl sat in the temple. God, are you really going to do this? The guard had a complicated expression. He didn't understand why God would do such a thankless task. Just like what I said to the Qinghai people, whether it's the Sky Island people or the Shandia people, we can only live better here if we cooperate with each other. Gan Forge was a little absent-minded. He really hoped that people could live in harmony. The guard had been with Ganfowl for a long time and knew him well. You'll be under a lot of pressure then. Ha ha ha, pressure and all that is just a passing cloud. Ganfowl waved his hand. We don't know how the Shandians will react yet. It's too early to talk about this. No matter what decision you make, we will follow you as always. The guards looked determined, and their respect for Ganfowl was deeply engraved in their hearts. Haha, let's put our hope on those people from Qinghai. Ganfor said, stroking his beard. He stood up from his seat, walked out of the temple, and looked at the sun in the sky. The dawn of hope bloomed when the Qinghai people agreed to help. From then on, it all depends on fate and the cooperation of everyone on Sky Island. The Island of Gods, above the clouds. The lamp of Shandora, passed down from generation to generation by the people of Sky Island, stands quietly in this place. A huge golden bell was hung between two huge pillars, and the body of the bell was engraved with complex and ancient runes. Tiny vines entwine around this golden platform, giving it a hint of age. There is a stone tablet under the lamp of Shandora, which is engraved with complex and ancient runes, and each rune seems to contain an unknown past. This is the source of the song that the people of Sky Island heard more than 300 years ago. The legend of the Golden City that has been circulating on Gaia Island originated from this golden bell. Jinan and the others stood in front of the altar, gazing at the stone tablet that had been passed down for who knows how many years. I regret it so much. If I had known I would not leave Bika today. If this continues, Ugh. Enel was feeling extremely regretful. As soon as he left Bika, he ran into 3 people who had always bullied him. He finally met a kind-hearted person, who took him to many places he had never been to before. That would have been fine, but first he jumped off the cliff and then quickly took off into the air. His little heart had endured too many things beyond his age. If it happened a few more times, he might have ascended to heaven on the spot. After finally calming down, he raised his head, revealing his pale little face. Are these words? Enel reached out and gently stroked the words on the stone tablet in front of him, curiosity flashing in his eyes. Jinan also looked at the text and sighed. Although he knew the content, he still couldn't understand it. Tian Yueshi stared at the stone tablet in a daze. She had only seen this kind of carving technique on things related to the Kojiki family. This is the main text of history. It records some secrets about this world. What history records is nothing more than the life of losers. Even if we know about the blank 100 years, it can only reveal the darkness of this world. It is not that useful for people living today, and may even lead to fatal disasters. Following the golden stairs up to the bottom of the golden clock, the 3 people's figures seemed extremely small in this environment. Is this the golden bell that is singing? Can ringing it really stop the fighting between the Sky Icelanders and the Shandayans? Tian Yueshi reached out and touched the lower edge of the golden bell. It should be possible, right? Enel had also heard of that legend. However, he was still very young and was not sure what the adults thought. Moreover, he was an unwelcome Sky Islander, and those people would not open their hearts to him. People's thoughts are diverse, and Jinan is not sure what consequences will come from ringing the golden bell. According to the legend, for the people of Sky Island, the sound of the golden bell is both a signal to start a war and a signal to end the war that lasted nearly 400 years. The Shandayans are also eager to fulfill the great warrior Kalgara's dying wish. Rolando's descendants hope that their ancestor will get rid of the reputation of a liar. Jinan looked at Enelo, who was still a little confused beside him. In the original work, the people of Sky Island and Shandia were forced to put aside hundreds of years of grudges and reluctantly reach a cooperation due to the threat of Enel. Now, without the threat of external enemies, both sides need to make greater efforts to reach a reconciliation. There is actually a very quick way to resolve the war caused by mud, but this matter was not caused by Jinan. If the people of Sky Island don't solve the problem themselves, war will definitely break out again. In my opinion, we should first go to the Shandayans and convey Ganfol's ideas. Tian Yueshi had the same concerns. The fight that was stopped by external forces may cause the people of Sky Island to start a war with other reasons in the future. In the face of force, sometimes a small bottle of laundry detergent can put the weaker party into an irretrievable situation. In that case, everything will return to the starting point. Enel felt like he had lost all desire in life. He knew that next he would have to climb up this vine and return to the White Sea. Can you slow down a bit this time? This was his only request. Chapter 100 Sandians. Sky Island. The place where the Shandayan people live, the hidden cloud village. I walked and asked along the way. Enelu, the self-proclaimed tour guide, played no role at all in this process. Don't look at me like that. I'm a Sky Islander, how dare you come over here? Enel lowered his head and defended himself in a low voice. Then he changed the subject. Ganfor is really something. He asked us to come to this unfamiliar place without even telling us the way. After crossing the winding mountain roads and the flowing sea of clouds, and after asking questions and receiving guidance along the way, Jinan and his 2 companions finally set foot in the territory of the Shandia people. Night has fallen, and the remaining twilight hangs dimly on the horizon, giving the land a mysterious dark blue hue. The Shandia people's settlement is hidden among the mountains, like a natural fortress. It does not appear gorgeous, but is displayed silently in a simple and solid posture. Between the houses one could see flickering flames, giving off the warm scent of human activity. But when Jinan and his 2 companions passed through the low bamboo fence and went deeper, they could clearly feel the subtle tension in the air. The Shandia people in the village seemed to be naturally wary of the arrival of strangers. There was scrutiny in their sharp eyes as they looked at each other with subtle movements, as if they were communicating something silently. At the call of their parents, the children hurried away, leaving behind only a few shortened figures and puzzled eyes. Whether from the attitude of the Shandia people towards them or the slowly increasing number of figures here, the 3 of them felt an obvious sense of distance. They slowed down their pace slightly, trying to reduce the distance between them and this foreign land in an unobtrusive way. Jinan used gestures to tell Tianyueshi and the other person not to act rashly and to behave in a peaceful and friendly manner. Just then, an old man walked out of the house slowly. His steps were very steady and his eyes were as sharp as a bird of prey. In one hand he held the scepter that symbolized his tribe, and with the other he stroked his graying beard. He stopped not far from Jinan and the other two, and broke the silence with an old but powerful voice, "Outsiders, what are you doing here?" Jinan and the others quickly exchanged glances. Suddenly, Jinan calmly took a step forward under the surprised gaze of the Shandia people, made a respectful gesture in front of his chest, and said, "Respected elder, we are explorers from Qinghai. We have heard of the wisdom and bravery of the Shandian people, so we come to visit and learn from their noble ways." There was no trace of arrogance in his words, but instead there was a bit of sincerity and respect for the other party. A barely perceptible change flashed across the face of the Shandian leader, like a fleeting ripple on hard stone. He was silent for a moment, his eyes turned from the three people, and finally tapped the scepter in his hand and said, "In this case, shouldn't you go to where the Sky Icelanders live? We have nothing here that can attract you." Before the voice died down, the other residents of the village seemed to relax a little, let down their guard a little, and began to gradually approach the three new faces. The firelight flickered in their eyes. Reflecting some contradictory emotions, they were wary of the unknown, but also had a desire to explore the people from Qinghai. Under the nervous gaze of the Shandia people, Jinan and his companions continued to move forward. At the same time, the Shandia people quietly tightened their weapons, still on guard against the three people who were approaching. "We have no ill intentions, you don't need to be so defensive." Jinan walked into the hidden cloud village and spoke in a steady voice, placing his hands where the other party could clearly see them, indicating that the three of them were not carrying any weapons. Seeing that the three men were not carrying any weapons, the people of Shandia felt a little relieved. Seeing that the people around him were less vigilant, Jinan directly answered the other party's question. "We've already been to Sky Island." "What?" The Shandian leader raised his voice slightly, "Are you sent by the Sky Island people?" Jinan nodded and then quickly shook his head, "We don't belong to Sky Island, no one can assign us tasks. It's just that Ganfowl wants to change your lives which have not changed in the past few hundred years. We came here just to make it happen." Wappa, who was standing next to the chief, moved, but was stopped by the chief. The leader of the Shandians stood in front of the crowd, his face marked with wrinkles of time and traces of wind and frost. Although his figure was no longer as majestic as before, his eyes still sparkled with determination. He raised his hand slightly and signaled to Jinan and the other two to look around. "You can look at the faces of the people around you." The Shandia people around stood in their respective positions with different expressions, but most of them had a look of disdain or indignation on their faces. In their hearts, the conflict with the Sky Icelanders is an epic of blood and tears, a deep racial grudge that is deeply rooted and indelible. This hostility has lasted for nearly 400 years. Generation after generation of Shandia people have remembered every conflict with the Sky Icelanders in tears and blood, and every scar is unforgettable. Countless times on dark and windy nights, the children in the village fell asleep to their mothers' lullabies, and that song was filled with unforgettable hatred and sorrow. As peacemakers, the three Jinan people naturally hoped to resolve the long-standing feud. However, the hatred of the Shandian people has been brewing for the same period of time as the lost homeland. During this period of time, the sedimentation is deeper than that of mountains and rivers. The leader was silent for a moment, closed his eyes, and seemed to be recalling the painful past. Then he said, "Your intentions are good, but some wounds are too deep to be healed by words." One can read a deep resentment in the eyes of the villagers. It's not that they don't yearn for peace, but when their land and dignity are taken away, and when all traces of their lives are eroded by the other side, the insurmountable gap in their hearts cannot be bridged by simple reconciliation. At this time, the soldiers in the village walked among the crowd, holding weapons made from rough iron ore in their hands, which showed their firm attitude in their hearts. Even when facing foreign envoys of peacemaking, their attitude was defensive and inviolable. What the Sky Icelanders occupied was not only their territory, but also the years and memories of their ancestors. This was a pain that the Shandia people could not bear. Tianyueshi stood at the crossroads of fate, feeling powerless but also understanding the deep hatred that could not be reconciled by his own efforts. Everyone knows when the cycle of revenge will end, but at the same time, they cannot easily overcome the scars that time has left on this nation. We can all understand the hatred that has lasted for almost 400 years. We can't interfere with your choices. We're not here to make you change your mind. But I want to tell you that the lamp of Shandora is at the top of the huge vine that runs through our Paleadu. The road is right under everyone's feet. Jinan has already told them the best solution. It now depends on their choices. End of the chapter. Like and subscribe for more videos like this.